G'day, welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute. This is Algared, and it is
It is
good
indeed.
morning somewhere, and evening, and afternoon somewhere else. I am so tired. It is beyond a joke at this point. Algared, how are you feeling? You've had nice sleeps every day almost, except yesterday. You lazy fuck.
I wouldn't say lazy. I'd say endeavouring to stay alive. It's probably more accurate.
You were trying to get your sleep, because sleep was one of the things you think that it's been affecting your health.
Yeah, well, in terms of heart issues, there were several factors that were coming up as being things you could control. I can't really control exercise because I already do enough of that.
Yeah.
I can't really control, food. Food because I'm already doing more healthy in that.
Yeah.
But sleep, making sure I had regular sleep and patterns, that's helpful. Making sure I'm not stressed. Well, I'm a teacher, so screw that.
Yeah.
But so just trying to look at the things that can actually help and help mitigate or reduce the impact. So yeah. So
thank you for the subscription on Twitch, Nomad A42. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're saying, Algared?
Yeah, but it wasn't that I wasn't intending to get up. I fully intended to. I'd sleep for the alarms. And yesterday I woke up for some God-known reason. And then, about an hour later I went, oh yeah, that's why I woke up. Because there was a little bit of twinging and fluttering and all those nice things that make you feel alive.
Yeah, so, I don't like to envy that thought as I grow older myself, to be honest with you. So on some kind of business notes, so to speak, we're going to try something different today. Besides your questions, we're also going to try and do a bit of Fix My Fleet live. I have no idea how this is going to go, because Algared will tell you sometimes these are really easy.
Yeah,
and other times they're needlessly complicated and they take hours and hours. So
we're
going to kind of go.
We've done it.
We're going to go into it. We're going to go into it, and if I can tell that it's going to take ages, then we'll probably go right. We're going to take this off stream, but we just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what it could potentially be like, because we never really kind of show you the behind the scenes stuff. So we thought if we did it live, it would kind of show it a little bit, because you just never know where they're going to go. Yeah.
Lifting the lid, because I know when we do an FMF, and we usually end up with a caterpillar or not a caterpillar, an endeavor or a crucible in the fleet. We get lampooned because that's what we always recommend. Now it is true, we do recommend them highly, but the ships that usually end up in there are usually the ships that fit what the person said they want to do, or it's to fill in the gaps because they've got so much crash left over after they've got everything they said they wanted. And so it's quite a weird thing. But as you said, sometimes they can be like, one bang done. Other times it's like, oh man, where are we going with this? And it's scratching our heads and then going through all and it can take, I think the longest that one's taken is several hours over several days just to work things out. And
it really depends on the person at the end of the day. It's what they want and their circumstances. Sometimes they can just not have a lot of money, but they want to get to really astronomical heights, and so there's a little bit of, I hate to use the word, but delusion that they can do that, and then we have to kind of like set realistic expectations, or say this is the only way. And we have found ways where I remember that one case where the guy had to put away $10 a month for literally 4 years to get to where he wanted to go, stuff like that. All right, the bot's up, taking your questions are coming in. So
they are coming in.
Yeah, so
I did see. I've got to say, I did see on YouTube some heresy. Someone said,
I read
melting an endeavor for an ironclad. Such heresy. That is, disgusting.
Yep.
You should be banned for saying that. I'm not sure who you are. You're lucky I can't see you anymore.
There's been a lot of trolling going about the ironclad.
You should be banned for such heresy.
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Of all the Drake ships I've seen in a long time, I am a bit disinterested. and I even said this to you yesterday. I feel they could have been variants for the Liberator. You know, they're not that dissimilar from the Liberator. And I think we've
look, if they want to sell a Javelin for an ironclad, that's fine with them.
Your camera, just so you know, your thing is very spotty today for some reason. You've kind of frozen twice on me today. I don't know. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, je ne sais pas. I have no idea why.
Yep.
Take your pick of which language you want.
Yeah. So Malcolm is actually with us in voice. I'll unmute him now so he can talk. And we'll kind of do this. Now, the one thing I didn't ask Mal beforehand was, Mal, do you actually have a fleet image? You melted everything, didn't you? I think you just said.
Absolutely melted everything, mate. And it's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Which we didn't
Thanks
tell
for
him.
having me.
We didn't tell him to do that. He's a crazy person on his own. So roughly how much do you have? Roughly how much? No, you don't have to explain. It'll take too long because we're trying to make this quick. So roughly how much credit do you have to work with?
13k all up.
Wow. Okay.
Which is enough to buy pretty much 4 javelins, I reckon, if I really wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Now,
why would you want 4 javelins? But yeah, okay.
So let's start this how we normally start. What do you want to do in game? And I think the other important part that I would add to this is what is your role in your org? That would be the other part. So maybe start with that and go backwards.
So what is your role in your org, and then what 3 professions do you see yourself doing? So what things really get you going?
So my main profession is cargo, mining, salvaging, and bounty hunting.
Apparently you can't count to 3, but right.
They're the 4 main.
Yeah, that's
they're the 4 main, but
hang on,
yeah.
Let me write those down. So we've got cargo. Mining.
Mining, salvage, bounty,
and bounty.
That's it.
Yep. Right. And what is your position in your org?
I am the leader.
I guess the next question will be how many people in your org?
150 to 200. So we're getting there. Yeah. It's going. So
now you listed to me. This is for Algared's benefit.
Man, thank you for that, Nick Jack. Thank you for 100 SEK.
Algared, I've got your camera off to do this, so just be quick. Idris, Javelin, Kraken, Pioneer, Hull E, Endeavour, Orion, all in buyback, right?
Yep. Stop, because we do have a super chat. 100 SEK, and it says, keep up the good work during Invictus, always enjoying your videos. Have a nice morning over there. And that was from Nick Jack. Thank you. All right, so all those ships in buyback, and they're all individual ships, weren't they?
Yep, and I have to turn your camera off to grab them because
no, that's okay.
Another way to do it. So I'll just post this here so you can see them. Right. Right. So what was your plan? So you tell us your thoughts, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay. My plan was to have all the capital ships at one point. So essentially, ships like the Pioneer, etc. The Javelin, the Kraken, the Orion. Just so we have a spread of all the different role play, including the Endeavour.
So what brought on the melting of all the ships? Because I think that's what most people are going to want to know. So I know, and Algared knows, but just tell the audience why you melted everything. Because you weren't able to get certain things, yeah?
It's not really because of that. It's because if you've put down X amount of funds into the game, right, and you want LTI, the only way you can get LTI on an 890 jump, as an example, is if you buy the if you buy the packs,
Mhm.
or unless if you pledged at the time it was released. So, but then the reason why I melted is because of a personal reason. It's kind of I got into the habit of collecting things, you know. And then I was like, the only way you're going to get out of that is if you melt everything and start again. That really gets rid of that habit. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. It's, you know, it was a hard decision to make, but we got there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just starting again, cleaning out the ships, but just making sure we do careful decisions this time, not as what CIG do best. You know, they release a new ship, go, oh wow, you know, that looks really cool, and before you know it,
not buying into the hype, essentially.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing, and but that's pretty. Long story short, that's the reason why I melted everything to basically cut away from doing that, and becoming that sort of Pokemon syndrome collector.
All right, so it'd be this one here on the right, yeah. This one, yeah. I'm just bringing this up for other people's benefit. Oh, you can't actually get to a screen. That's annoying. I guess we'll just have to do it there. Right.
I think it scrolls.
Yeah, that's annoying, mate. Right. So what I'm looking at here is this is the pack that Mal was telling us about that he wanted to look at, and I actually know 2 other content creators that recently rolled into this yesterday or the day before. So that is a lot of ships. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 ships, if I've got my math correct, which I probably did. But 24 ships. So would you be looking at upgrading, I guess, essentially the smaller ones? To other
heck
things?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Yep.
Right. Again, with the amount that you've invested, that is not terrible in my book. And then you've literally still got that's 9k essentially, so you've still got 4k left over to upgrade all those ships into other things that you want. You've got things in buyback. It's not terrible because of financially how much you've already invested, and you get those 2 ships that you were struggling to get, which was the Idris and the Javelin.
The main point, if I might say, I just want to get the value for the money's worth. There's no point, because I used to be a vehicle snob. I used to buy all the vehicles, but then it's about 6k worth of vehicles. Yep. And you guys have been saying this over and over again. They're not worth buying because it doesn't bring any value.
Yep.
And you're right.
Well, you look at that. You know, you've got all the vehicles at 6k. They're great to use now, and it's not denying that the ships are fun or the vehicles are fun. But when there are other ships you want to buy, that's 6k. That's exactly. 2 javelins.
Yeah.
You know, why you'd want to buy 2 javelins at one time is beyond me, but that's 2 javelins in one hit.
And add to what Aaron's saying, you're an org leader, so you're going to get a lot of use, especially with 150, 200 people. You're going to get a lot of use of those bigger things.
Yeah.
So just to kind of speed this up, because this is going to take a long time if we talk about every little thing. In buyback, you've got certain things like the Kraken, the Pioneer, and the Hull E. They're probably going to be 3 things you have to buy back. The Endeavour and the Orion you would roll in. And then looking at the other things you've said here, like cargo, mining, salvage, and bounty hunting. So you'd probably want to roll one of those ships up to an Orion, roll one of them up to a Reclaimer. Bounty, you're probably going to want a Polaris, if you're going for the bigger ones, that is. And then for cargo, I'd probably go Banner Merchantman Agrid. I assume you were with me on that one, or?
Yeah, but Banner Merchantman's a good option. And then, just because it's got so many options. Because that is the Aegis pack, though, doesn't that already have the Reclaimer in it?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Or have I got my
no, you are correct.
Manufacturers mucked up.
Yep, no, I fucked up there. You're right. So yeah, I'm trying to think what else you want there. So yeah, again.
You look at the ship, the things in that fleet. Earmark, if that's the pack you get, and earmark the things you want to CCU to, and use them as your CCU tokens to move up.
Yeah, and Excel sheet the shit out of it so you don't stuff it up, and plan everything. Like I wouldn't even bother applying the CCUs until you're 100% definite that's a ship you want to get rid of, and that's a ship that you want to turn it to, and if that ship is out, right? So, for example, the Polaris is not out, so you've got opportunities there to still buy some Warbond CCUs before it drops to reduce the price, and any future ships that you want to get in there. And I would, to prevent anything like hype, I would be actively talking to people before you buy anything. Right, or upgrade into anything, and you'd be moving from a buying brand new ships economy to I'm upgrading. And the thing that you're in, and Algared will always tell you this is why I hate packs, is that you want to be really sure before you apply an upgrade. And I'd be like putting my foot down on myself and literally going, I am only ever going to upgrade once a ship is out, right? Because that just stops you from making so many mistakes.
Oh yeah, that's what
I think there are some ships where you could apply a CCU without waiting for it to be up. So you want an Endeavour, you know that the Endeavour is going to be fairly big and modular. That is not a ship that's a ship worth CCU tuning to and putting it in straight away. But you want to make sure that any ship you put in is a ship you're 100% certain you want, because once you CCU them into a pack, once you've done the first one, you can, if you don't do any more, you can always undo it and redo it, and redo them. The second you've got 4 or 5 in the pack that you've CCU'd, if you make a mistake and you have to redo the CCUs or redo a CCU, you've got to basically do the whole lot again, and that's the frustration and annoyance of the pack. Now, in a sense, you're lucky because most of the CCUs you're going to be buying are not going to be war bonds. So just because you're going to use that credit pool, unless it's a really super war bond CCU, I'm guessing you're not really wanting to be sinking more cash in when you've got so many credits left over. Yep. And so you could actually use your credits to actually get those CCUs. That mitigates, in some sense, that if I apply the CCUs, I've lost the war bond CCUs and I've lost the savings. So there are different ways you can go about it, but in general, hold off applying the CCUs until you're 100% certain you need that ship or you want that ship.
Yeah. So the last part of this would be if you roll into the pack, would be essentially working at, well, you've obviously got the Reclaimer and any other Aegis ships there that you want to keep. But you want to work out what you want to turn, like your long-term plan is what to turn the other ships back into. And then obviously ships that you can't get, like in your list here, like the Kraken, the Pioneer, the Hull E, that you can't roll into, right? And I'd also question that if you're going to pick up a Hull E, or are you going to get a Banu Merchantman or whatever, and their discussions we'll have with you at another date, because they're the ones that draw out and take freaking ages. But yeah, so we'll continue. I think we're at the point now, unless you can think of anything else, this is where it's going to start to have that back and forth type of thing. So we can kind of wrap it up here, unless anyone in chat wants to add anything to this. That's Malcolm's plan that he came to us with, and I don't think it's an unsound one. I think at the moment it sounds pretty level-headed to me. He's had trouble essentially getting the Aegis and Javelin, and with the amount of money he's spent, this is less than what he's spent, so it still leaves him roughly $4,000 to move around with.
And flesh.
Well, once you buy back the Kraken and Pioneer, that goes down to like $1,000. So
that's still a lot to be able to shuffle things around in that pack.
Yeah.
And
you are going to have to put fresh cash in though with Warbond CCUs. That's the only other thing I'd say.
It depends on what he actually wants to grow up to, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But again, you got to assume that he's going to want to take an Avenger, Titan, and Titan Renegade, and a Warlock, and go up because they're fairly small. But just plan everything out and don't apply it until that ship is out. That's kind of a really easy rule, because it'll just slow you down enough that you'll still get everything you want, but it'll allow you to keep buying savings. Because if the CCU chain is laid out, you've always got an opportunity to reduce the cost. And every time you reduce the cost, it's essentially saving you money and you're getting more, not less. Where if you lock something in, it's like, oh, fuck. And then you're going to have to give up something else to get what you want. And it becomes an epic nightmare. So just the longer you hold off applying, the safer you'll be.
I've got some CCUs I've applied to when they got rid of $0 CCUs. I applied a pile of CCUs to packs.
Hang on.
I wish I'd actually applied them slightly differently.
So someone's suggesting in chat that you should get the Praetorian pack. Let's have a look at that, because that might be something.
That is something that I considered at one point too.
Yep. Well, you've got the money, so let's have a look at it. So
it's not a bad thought, and there's a lot of CCU.
Where is it on here? Victoria.
It's packs. Ship game packages.
Oh, 15 grand.
It's the second big. Yep.
Damn. Okay.
It's a big money.
890 Jump, Idris, Pioneer, Polaris, Hammerhead. Oh, okay, yeah, dude, this actually sounds a lot better because it's got a lot more big ships in it.
But I don't think it has a Javelin. Does it have a Javelin?
No. Okay, so that's why you really want a Javelin. I know that from.
So if you're after the Javelin,
and that's fine.
It doesn't do it, but it gets you the Pioneer and the 890 with LTI, which are two ships you can't generally get without LTI.
Try and scab.
I can't remember whether it's got a Kraken in it because it's not a pack I've really looked at.
So if you
it's got a whole pile of very small things that you'd want to CCU.
It's got a shit ton of ships. And it's got a lot of vehicles. But the other part of it is he does get I think the only thing he doesn't get there is the Kraken. He doesn't get a Kraken either, but he's got a Kraken in buyback.
Yeah. So he doesn't get the Javelin, but he gets an Idris. And he gets a Pioneer, and he gets an 890, and they've all got LTI, and that's you can't get a Pioneer with LTI. The only time you could get it was when it was first put out for 600.
He's got one.
890.
Stop. He's got one in buyback.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know, because I know you want a Javelin. So the only other question would be is if you could somehow get a Javelin at one of the sales, but you said you've had a lot of trouble doing that, so. I don't know, something to consider. All right, well, I think we'll have to continue this at another time, but that is definitely food for thought. You also, by the way, that Idris isn't not just an Idris; it's an Idris M, which is also. I know Algared was talking about the Pioneer, but the Idris M is way more rare than the Pioneer.
Indeed.
Yeah, and then you've got to ask yourself, do you actually want an 890 jump and things like that as well? So. It's not a terrible idea. I would say generally I think the ships in this are better. But yeah, you'd still want to. And again, at 15k, didn't you say you'd spent 13?
13.
Yeah, so that's more cash, and then you'd need even more cash again to get things like the Kraken and that back. So that's where I start to go, because I don't want you to spend more cash.
Yeah. Based on just that alone, I wouldn't go the Praetorian.
Yeah.
I'm not going to die. I think that is a good pack for those big ships.
Yep.
The problem with a lot of those big packs, unless you're a collector, is they're filled with dross. They're filled with the vehicles. They're filled with the little ships. They're filled with all the things that are just going to pad it out. And there's way more LTI tokens in that pack than there are in the Aegis pack. And you've actually got to put, as X said, an extra 2k in just to secure that. And my understanding is you're trying to avoid putting a massive amount in, and you're trying to streamline. So I think the Aegis pack ends up being the better option.
Well, it essentially means
you want.
It essentially would bring him up to almost 20k. So you'd have to spend another $5,000, and that's just to get the Javelin and the Kraken. So
and if you go on that level, you start to go, I may as well start looking at
it's a slippery bloody slope.
Regardless, it's a slippery slope. So now if you're after a Javelin, I think an Idris P, the Aegis pack is certainly the better option, I think, because it's within the budget, the credit budget.
Yep.
It gives you were saying you don't want to have all the ships. You're trying to be more constrictive, and those smaller ships in the Aegis pack will kind of give you those LTI tokens and limit your growth.
Yep.
You've still got the Pioneer in buyback. If it's LTI, that's even better. You've still got the Kraken in buyback, which I assume has LTI.
Yep.
So that's two that's two of those other ships you want, and they'd be ships you'd be looking at buying back. But even if you buy them back, you've still got credits.
We're going over our old territory here. We're running in circles. So yeah, long story short, I think we can kind of rule this one out because of everything Algared just mentioned. Again, I think with the things you have in buyback, you're probably essentially getting more. The only two things are those top two ships that you're essentially gaining, but you're also gaining $5,000 of debt, which I can't get behind. I'd also like to assume that there's at least one other person in your org that's got an 890 jump.
Yeah, there are a couple. Yep.
And that is not a function ship. That is a form ship. That is a vanity item. It is not essentially needed. And if someone else has got one, you don't need it.
I've got one in buyback as well.
Oh,
so that's fine. Yeah.
The other thing to consider as an org leader is you don't need to have every single solitary ship.
I know, and I have learned that.
And all you want to you don't even want to necessarily have all the heavy ships. You just want to have enough that your org can do the things at times that you want, so you can facilitate the org, because people are going to want to bring their own ships.
Exactly right.
And and so there will be times where. Like I went through a time where I thought I needed every fighter or every Idris, to flesh out a squadron, and I went, man, that's nuts. Yeah.
So we'll go through this with you before the finale. I think we'll kind of wrap it up here, but with the finale coming up, you've got a lot of options to pick up those end CCUs. So you pick up your end CCUs, pick up some war bonds that'll give you some discounts, and then essentially plan for the future. And we'll go all through that with you at a later date. But we're getting into the area now where you can see very quickly it's getting into the weeds. So we'll kind of drop it off here, but I think the Aegis plaque might be the way to go, and we'll go through that with you at a later date, but before, like literally in the next 48 hours, we'll go through this with you.
Yeah, no problem, man.
But I think we'll kind of wrap it up
guys.
here. Yeah, no worries.
Yep.
And I think I just kind of wanted to show people like how this kind of pans out, and it has been a very brief version of what we normally do. Yeah. All right then.
And it usually goes a lot more back and forth and round and up and down and double checking and triple checking and quadruple checking values and purposes and role of ships and everything else, doesn't it?
The other thing that makes it different, though, is that he's literally starting from zero. A lot of the time, the thing that makes this really different is usually we're working with a preset fleet and changing certain things, and that makes this one different again. Yeah.
Because this is just, I've got this many credits. What do I need?
Yeah.
So,
All right, Mal, you're welcome to stay in the room and listen if you want, but I'm going to put you back on mute if that's okay. If you want to say anything before we do that, you're more than welcome to.
Love you guys. Thanks for everything.
All right.
Oh, shucks. Golly gosh, we love you too.
Talk to you soon, mate.
Cheers, mate.
All right.
Right. We've got a couple of things to go over here. So apparently they've upgraded the shit out of the Firebird, and there's a couple people in chat telling me that they've doubled the missile count on it. So that sounds like an absolute response to this thing is lackluster as shit, and they've just basically gone, oh, all right, you just have double the missiles. I don't know how you'd fit double the missiles inside that thing, but that's...
You mean the Firebird?
Yeah, the Firebird. What did I say?
I didn't hear the ship. You just said double the missiles, and I just went, talking Firebird.
Yeah. So it does upgrade it if they double it, because it literally essentially gives you as many missiles as the Shrike. But by the same count, it's the same problem as the Shrike. Once the missiles are gone, the ship becomes a liability.
They could double the missiles by reducing the missile size, making them size 2s instead of size 3s.
Well, that's a downgrade too.
But that's a downgrade as well. So
even though they double the missile count, to me, it brings it up, but it does not bring it above the Raven or the Saber in my book. It's still the same problem, because once those missiles are gone, they're a liability. Now,
it's the same problem I have with ballistic weapons on a fighter. Eventually, you run out of ammo, and if that's all you've got, you kind of, I've got to run away or do something else. But so get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I don't think it really changes it for me. It just extends the life that it's out there. So now instead of taking out essentially 2 ships, you could probably take out 4. That does bring it up a fair bit, and you are going to want missiles in combat, right? You want a bit of variety in your squadron, so to speak. But again, if I'm buying a ship for my individual self, it's not the one I'd be buying. And again, as Algared and I always say, don't buy fighters because they're not worth it. They're not going to multiply in value on the release.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I could see using size 3 rattlers, but again, that's it's the same type of problem. You run out of ammo and then you're done. All right, question.
No. We need to talk about this. Unless
Okay,
you want a question from the chat, or you want to ask me a question.
Oh, question from the chat.
No.
Question from the chat.
We got to talk about this old legend as well, because I know you were getting very uppity yesterday. I actually had to say, like he started talking about it in another episode, and I actually had to tell him to stop.
No, that was when we redid it. But when I did mention it in the episode, that was just the point I was making. It was just a related point. That it is something we want to discuss in more detail rather than just doing it as a side issue, because it is such a big part of the history of Star Citizen.
I think the problem that I'm seeing going forward on a few of the things in this sale is where they do packs, and the pack is new for the first time ever, and they don't include LTI. Right? So another one, so they had a $650 pack that came with a whole bunch of the different Mark 1s.
Stuff.
They also had a Retaliator with all the modules for the first time. They've never sold that before.
Yeah.
No LTI. So they're breaking their LTI shit, and it's
no, they're not, because the packs get LTI if there's a ship or a vehicle in the pack that has not been released.
Yep.
And because all those ships have been released, they put them together. It's not breaking their LTI rule. That they started using.
So this and I know that, and that's what I'm saying. But this tells me, right, just like it tells you, and I know you know this, but I'm saying it for everyone else's benefit, that modules aren't worth it. Yeah. Because if modules were considered like ships, and it was a new pack, they would all have LTI, would they not? So it just shows you how little value that they have. And again, I would not be buying the essential Retaliator Master set. I would be buying just the base and then all the modules in game.
When the modules, so at least when the modules for the Retaliator were first released, they did have LTI, same as the modules for the Endeavour.
Yeah.
But just like every ship, when they come out again, they don't have LTI. And I tend to think if you're getting things without LTI and you're spending, you've got lots invested in the game, you're nuts if you don't get LTI. Now, I know LTI is just a minor convenience, but it's just a minor convenience that's worth having if you've spent so much. And I've said it multiple times. CIG should just bite the bullet and just give LTI to any ship that is purchased on the store with cash or credit. And just be done with it. Anything that's purchased on the store with cash or credit gets LTI.
Yeah, I am worried for the future, because they've never really kind of told us about where LTI is going to go. But we'll see.
I think it's always been LTI is just a convenience. It's just like ship hull insurance. It just means you don't have to pay the monthly or quarterly fee for it. I don't expect it to be big on anything up to say. I'd say anything up to an Idris. I don't expect it to be massive. Idris, Javelin, Kraken, any of those ships, then I think you're nuts if you don't have LTI, because I think it's just going to be...
So this is essentially the two that we're talking about, right? So you've got all the modules at $360, so it's $200 extra just to get all the modules. But those modules you got to treat them almost like, if you look at them individually, they're like less than Auroras and Merlins and stuff. Like they're like the most expensive one's $75. That's an arrow. And again, sell your fighters. It's the same mentality. You're essentially buying this ship and a few small fighters. And I would almost treat modules more like vehicles than I would ships. I think they'd be even less than vehicles.
Sorry. If I misled people in making it seem I was disagreeing with you, no, 100% agree. Modules are like ships. There's very few modules, and even when you look at the Endeavour, there's very few modules that are above that role, and that's assuming the module cost increased like 3-4 times. Even if they increase 4 times, an Endeavour module is still like $80. It's still cheaper than a ship.
And
so you'd expect them to be really dirt cheap in game.
I also believe apparently everyone's been given a Retaliator at the moment to try out. Because there was a bug and you couldn't rent it or something like that. So, from what I heard, but I haven't checked it myself. But apparently everyone's got a Retaliator. So the other thing is get in game and check it out for yourself.
And I can see that's a nice convenient bug. I'm not saying they've done it deliberately, but it's a nice bug for CIG to have.
Yeah.
In that they give everyone a Retaliator. People try and go, oh yeah, I want one of them. So yeah, it's a nice convenient bug.
Yep. Yeah, nice. So Harold Spark saying he was very lucky he had a Mark I in buyback. Yeah, good on you, man. It's going to be a rare ship, no doubt. Especially the Mark I 7A. If you can get a copy of that, yeah, awesome. But again, I'm a form over function person, right? Why would you want a Mark I from a function? I'm talking purely function, right? Not rarity. If you want a rarity, yeah, that's awesome. I've got this rare thing that you don't have. Yeah, cool. I get the exclusivity part, right? But from a function perspective, you're going to want the Mark II over the Mark I. There's just... Yeah. And you got to also look at the legacy stuff, like how often are they going to actually update that thing?
Yeah.
And we've seen it with ships already where things get left behind and then they come back and work on them later. But again, they're going to look at stuff like that and go, well, only 1,000 people can use this, but everyone potentially can
use this one.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a matter of priorities. Which one gets the most use? Which one's got the most value? It's one reason like people bag out certain ships all the time, but it's one reason why ships like the 890 Jump or the or stuff lag behind because not many people have them.
Yep, and also
compared to
just what they're saying in chat there. Yeah, technically the Tali went down. It did go down in price. The Torpedo Bomber 1 went down to $285, so people lost like $15 in value and stuff like that. So yeah, let's be honest though, it's not very often you see things go down in price in this game. It's pretty damn rare. I think it's one of the only times I can actually think of in recent memory where it actually has gone down. I'd have to just sit there and go back through everything to figure out which ones went down, but it's pretty rare. I'm trying to think if it's ever happened actually, and it might take me.
I can't recall a time it's ever happened where a ship has gone down in value.
Yeah.
But I think in sense,
worst case scenario though, you can just melt your old one and well, actually no, you can't because this is War Bond. That's why it's $15 cheaper. Also, that's probably. Oh no, that's just a pack. No, actually, it's standalone. No, you could just melt your old one and buy this one back, and you'd get $15 credit back. The only thing you would lose would be your naming rights would drop to the back of the line, type of thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum for people to be in. But I think it comes down to the modules. I think there's an element where they're going, okay, well, the ship is this, but without the modules, it's really, and so it's trying to balance the use of the modules and with the ship to give it the price range and value they want for the ships. And I don't see a problem with that. And being a person who owns a couple of Retaliators impacts,
just a quick,
I can't melt them.
So a quick question to Monster Avery: are you talking about the personal module, the dropship module, because they were sold previously and that's why they're not for sale now? So they sold them previously, and because they're not out, that's why they're not selling them now. He was just asking me, did you notice they weren't for sale? So I assume he's talking about those ones.
Yeah.
But again, this all of a sudden shows you how exciting modularity can be. But I think unlike other ships that have modules, it's really interesting because it's got two, right? And I can't think of, besides the Endeavor, right? Obviously, but the Endeavor's different again because of positioning and shit like that. But it having two modules, this makes this a hyper configurable ship. As you and I have said for years, it really does make it an awesome smuggling ship because of that.
There are 3 ships that I know, or 4 ships that I know of, that had multiple modules. Actually 5 that had multiple modular bays. The Javelin with its 6 rooms that are modular. The Endeavour with its modular system. The Carrack with its 3 cargo bays. The Retaliator, and I'm trying to think of the last one. I had it in my mind and I just lost it. But they're the base ones. Oh, and the Caterpillar. They were the 5 ships that had different bays or different sections where you could where they'd said you could actually swap and change. The Caterpillar, we never heard anything about the modules, bar the dreaming stuff. They've never released any. The Javelin, they've said it's got 6 modular rooms, but again, we haven't seen what those modular rooms are. The Carrack, they've mentioned the possibilities, but never described them. The only 2 ships that they've actually described the modules on are Retaliator and the Endeavour. And so we know we'll get those ones in terms of the little modules they've got. And I'm not including the Galaxy Net because it's not in those multiple modular ships, but yeah.
Yeah, so modularity for any ships that have it are really interesting. And Mike, especially with what's happened with the Ironclad in the last 28, 48 hours, whatever how long it is, I do want to have a look at this. So, yeah, thank you, Monster. He linked me this. Apparently, John Crew has said this. I don't know. This could be porn that I'm pulling up here or whatever, but we'll see. Let's have a look. It looks like it's a Spectrum post. So, apparently, so it says, John, still plan to let you swap out the individual pods. No further details on what the pods modules are at this time. It's likely will also make it so it's straight swapping rather than creating stubby pillars or indefinite length pillars. Well, they mentioned that years ago that it would always have to be the 5 modules, so the 4 in the nose. So that's not new news. That's old news. But the first part is a good reconfirmation. But I think now more than ever, when the Ironclad has landed, that top part has to be by the end of the year. Like I've held onto that ship for, and I know you have too, and I'm not the only one, but we're coming up to a decade at this point, are we not? Like this thing came out, it's over a decade because it was basically right after Kickstarter.
I think the bigger thing that hints at the modules for it are coming is not the Ironclad. It's the fact that Retali's out and it's now got modules that are out. All Retali's modules aren't in, but the fact that you've actually got modules for the Tally is probably the biggest point to that.
You know what I mean though? Like how can you make an informed decision on a ship when you don't have all the information? It's something you and I talk about all the time, and this has not had the information for coming. And when I say 10 years, I'm talking about like 2015, 2016 when they dropped those videos, right? So
and we haven't heard anything since.
8 years that we haven't heard anything, right? I'm not talking about really when it came out at Kickstarter. I should have clarified, sorry. But yeah, it's been about 8 years since we've heard anything, which is crazy, right? How can you buy a ship when you don't know all the details? So and then that does tie in with what you were saying about the Ironclad, because you've got this ship that you like that's got modularity versus this big ship that doesn't have modularity. Can I even change my command module from those two to those ships? Are they the same command module? Let me
give, in the sense of modular ship. But if a Caterpillar doesn't have modules, then what's the point of keeping the Cat?
Let me throw this back at you then. If the Ironclad was modular and could just go between the 2 variants, if you could go between the Assault and the Cargo variant, I would then be interested in that ship. But the 2 separate variants, I give no shits.
If the big body is actually a module, is actually the module and the command module.
No, that is not what I said. I said if you could switch between the 2 variants, so if you can go between the Assault and the Cargo, so you buy one ship and you get an Assault ship,
and you're saying you can swap between them.
Yeah, because essentially you're just putting that repair bay in, and you're putting extra gun turrets on it.
Look, if it was a shipyard job, I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah. That's where I would go. I would have made it modular.
If you're talking module, you're talking modular, it's a different kettle of fish from saying.
Well, it's like a privateer
variant.
It's like a privateer module because they put things on the inside, so they put the repair facilities in and they change the turrets, right? So it's similar to a privateer. You're caught up on the Caterpillar module. Just drop the Caterpillar.
No, I'm not thinking Caterpillar modules at all. I'm clarifying that what you're suggesting is not a module; it's a variant which you do at a dockyard.
Yes.
That's totally different from a module which you take in and out.
Right. So would that make the ship more appealing to you?
But if it was an upgrade, you could do at a dockyard, yeah.
Yeah.
If I could upgrade it and then change later and go another dockyard job and return it back the way it was, yeah.
Yeah. Because the cargo one for me is too, like, there are better cargo ships than it in my book, like the Bounty Merchantman and stuff like that. And then, you know, it's too similar to some other things. The only variant is the cargo module version in my book, because it leans more towards piracy and looting. Then you go to the assault variant, and it's like, well, I can kind of almost get away with doing that on a Liberator, but just not as well. Plus, the Liberator does other stuff, so both things do either. Where if you make it do both, you've got a little bit of flexibility, so you can have combat on the weekend with one variant and then cargo during the weekday type of thing. So it gives you some flexibility. At the moment, both two versions are too inflexible for me, and there are other ships that do that and something else. So the Banner Merchantman does cargo and selling. The Liberator does... well, it's not going to be as good, right? But the Liberator can technically deliver things to the ground, as can two... You could buy two C2s and deliver the 4 vehicles. And then have having ships separate is not a bad thing. And then you have different repair facilities that are more, you know, if the repair facilities are on that ship, they're going to only be tailored at vehicles, right? Where if you have a proper combat repair ship, it's going to do ships, vehicles, the whole 9 yards, you know what I mean? So...
Yeah, but I think that's a difference between the modules and variants idea. I would hope that any ship that's got a variant, you could do in game later on. You'd be able to do in a dockyard. It will take time, and I expect any modular you've got, even if it's a dockyard job, like I expect the Endeavour to be or a Javelins to be, they will take less time to do than a full refit of a ship to change it into another model. And that's the advantage of the modules over the variants. And I think there's got to be that yin and yang and give and take. And I'm not sure which is necessarily the best, but I certainly agree that variation and that variety you can have with your ship is what makes the ships and makes the game, you know, enabling you to play the game the way you want.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But to go back to the topic we started on before we had that Sedgway, which was the ship that started it all, the Hornet.
I got nothing else to really say on that. I said my piece.
And you were right. I was very cheesed off with the idea that they were retiring when I first heard, because we don't even have the game. We don't even have Squadron out. It was the default fighter for Squadron. People bought the ship, and you're now retiring it, and that's like, that to me was nuts. It's like saying, oh, you bought this for 180, but now you got to upgrade to this ship that's an extra $50, or, you know, at the time. Now I know they put out the $5 CCU, and then they reduced it to $0 CCUs at the moment, which is great, but it was still that sense of, man, this sucks. You know, so yeah. I've since read the Spectrum post, and I've got to admit, after reading the Spectrum post, I'm still not 100% certain it's great. But I'm certainly not as concerned. Just
really quick, because someone said something in chat that I got to address. So Akeisha said, the Hornets really wrecked my chains in different ways in the past 12 months. If you've already got those chains links, it's changed nothing. Just leave the links the way they are. Even if you haven't applied them, they'll still work. I've got literal links where they're going back down in value and then up in value and all that. As long as the chains are there, you're fine. And you only melt and unmelt them if you can get some more savings, right? You're fine. I've literally got ones for retaliated or eclipses and shit like that. So it's,
100%. If you got a chain made with a CCU already, it doesn't matter if the chip changes price. Your CCU's in your hangar, doesn't matter. Doesn't change it.
He's got ones to the Heartseeker, and that's why you don't buy variants. You buy the thing as okay.
Yeah, the Heartseeker's a nightmare, because that is
honestly, I'm going to be honest. That's something they should have put up. You'll never have a chance to get a Heartseeker again.
Yep.
And that's probably something we should put up there, especially if these are only going to be sale for the next couple of days. Give us one more. Give us one more opportunity to buy. Yeah, well, if the Heartseeker eventually gets upgraded to a Mark II, fair enough. That's probably what'll happen, Akeisha. They'll probably upgrade it to a Mark II.
Yeah, but if not, I think they should still make it available as a in this sunset sale.
Yeah.
Last chance to get a Heartseeker. Mark I.
They did do
100%.
They did do the Wildfire, so why didn't they do the Heartseeker?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Probably because they forgot.
Well, if anyone at CIG is watching, I don't know, bring it up
We'd love to see a Heartseeker on sale.
Bring it up with everyone else too, like Space and Paul and all that, because I guarantee you they'll all get behind that as well. And hopefully someone at CIG hears it and they put it up there. But yeah, wouldn't count my chickens, put it that way. But yeah, unfortunate. Right.
Yeah.
Finally,
admittedly, the Heartseeker is just a skin, really, compared to everything else. But yeah.
Let's get on to the questions then. So,
all right. So, first one was Mark.
Yep. So Mark ATV Vlog says, question, does Algared have an OnlyFans? I will definitely subscribe to that.
I was wondering what OF was. Thank you for updating me on that. No, the fact that I didn't actually understand what OF was tells you that no, I don't have an OnlyFans.
Yeah. Right, John Ski.
I do have a fledgling YouTube that I never use because I'm always here.
Yeah. All right, John Ski says, question, when Squadron 42 gets released at CitizenCon this October, do you think the update and Vandal ships will be for sale? Oh, that's a good question. Possibly.
Yeah, I think so, because they did say the Vandal ships wouldn't be out until Squadron 42 was out.
It would definitely help
it would definitely help sales.
Well, it'd help them raise some money for marketing too, which is clearly what they're doing this year. That's what all the sales are about.
You think Squadron 42 comes out, do you think that we'll see the Idris on sale at that time? Because it's a key ship in Squadron. Certainly I'll see the Vandal ships being available. So, yeah. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree with you, John. I do expect Squadron. The more I hear and see, the more I think that October is the release of Squadron. I could be wrong, but yeah, I'm leaning more and more towards that.
Right. Panda Maniac says, have you ever recommended someone eliminate their existing Crucible or Endeavor from the fleet? Yeah, absolutely. We would have at some point.
We have.
Yeah. I can't think of a Crucible one off my head, but I can think of an Endeavor one that we've recommended that someone removed because they only had a certain amount of cash and that wasn't in their wheelhouse.
Yeah, usually it's been of those two, the Crucible is the one we'll encourage people to keep, especially if they've got bigger ships, because it is the repair ship for fleets.
I think it's gone both ways, Algared, because also the Endeavor is better value, so it really depends on the fleet.
It depends on the fleet, it depends on the org, it depends on the group. I know you've said at times we only had two in our org at one time. I think it was 3 or 4 people who had Idrises, not Idrises, but Crucibles, and I think all up there were probably 6, 7, or 8 between the whole org. It was a very small compared to the number of ships that were in the org. Yeah. But it is a very undervalued or often undervalued ship in orgs, and we've probably, I hope, but if the numbers have changed, it's because we've just raised that awareness over the years. But yeah.
MU235 says, how do you gents feel about the dust going to settle around the Retaliator? Well, it really depends. Is the Retaliator in space or on the ground? If it's in space, it's just going to float there. If it's on the ground, the dust will eventually settle and land on the ground. I don't know how else to answer that. Do you know how to answer that one?
No, I think that's it'll eventually settle. It would be interesting to see if it also settled on the wings at sometimes, but that's kind of fluff. That's nice to have, but it's not essential, and I'm quite happy for it to take
So if you can't tell, me and Algared don't actually know what you mean by that question, because like you've clearly said something's up in the air about the Retaliator. Are you just talking about the prices? You're talking about the modules? Or your context? So if you want to re-ask that question, we'll answer it properly.
Yeah.
Nick Jack says, question, okay, I have somewhat of a luxury dilemma. Okay. Again,
you tell us your luxury dilemma, and we'll try to answer it.
Context. It's what, you got some fancy MJ Hammer pants that don't fit? Like, I don't. What's the question? Right. Nova A42. Is Drake an unofficial
luxury?
Yeah. Is Drake an unofficial part of Invictus? The main party goes on break, so Drake can have their day before the official finale. Yeah. Well, again, it's shoehorning because of It's
where marketing and in-world break. So in game, they're kind of shoehorned on the end because they're not part of Invictus and they want to be.
Quite honestly, what they should do is they should put them at the start. If you think about it, so they go, "Hey, look at us," and then the event starts, and then it's all,
and it becomes all prim and proper rather than rowdy, and that'd be one way to deal with it. But yeah, it's the idea of that the marketing kind of trying to work that, and that would solve that problem of in-game and marketing kind of clashing in terms of that sale aspect. But yeah, Rusty Pigeon Gaming Channel says, do you guys think the tally is worth it after rework? I sold mine. I didn't feel like it brought justice to the modular because the small cargo bays and people required.
For me, it wasn't the modules. It was the turrets and all the guns and the fact that it needs 5 peoples. Like I was fully expecting like the gold pass treatment and like a rebalancing of stuff, and they didn't do any of that. And it complexed the shit out of me. And I'm like, why the hell didn't you do this? Like it clearly is a holdover from an older design, and it just feels so dated. And why would you want so many size 2s and 3s on that thing when it's just it just made no sense to have so many people on a ship with not much to do. It's just it's over turreted. Drop them down, drop the number. There's just so little for people to do on that thing.
Yeah, it really does feel you want to have less turrets or more linked remote turrets or something like that. Make the size 2s linked and remote, and
just to put it in a very simple light that people understand. The Tali max crew is 5. The minimum crew on a Polaris is 6. Now, why the hell would I take that when I can put one more person on a Polaris?
And have bigger torpedoes and bigger ship and a hangar and cargo and not even have to worry about modules.
And this is the difference between like you and I understand this stuff, but one thing I hear a lot, right, and we hear this from content creators and people, it is always the people that people are worried about getting, not the dollar amount of ships. It usually is the number one thing that comes through, especially at the moment, right? Because people have spent a lot. They're just like, I cannot get the crew to man this, but I can get the crew to man this.
We heard the same argument, literally the same discussion about the Perseus and the Polaris. I will get a Perseus over a Polaris because I can't have the crew, but the Polaris in the showroom convinced me that I don't want a Polaris because it's so big and I can't get the crew. The only information we've got on the Polaris is it's the minimum crew of 6, and the Perseus is minimum crew of 6, maximum crew of 6. If you can do a Polaris, if you can do a crew of Perseus, you can crew a Polaris. But it is that type of argument, and you see that all the time. And when you look at a tally, that problem with a tally being so overcrewed for its size compared to the other ships, even a Perseus, it's one more crew on a Perseus than a tally. It just doesn't compute, and it's got limited. And if you look at the missiles, it's got very limited loadout for missiles or torpedoes.
And there's only one person difference.
Yeah.
I know which one I'm taking out. Again, we're telling you, like, most people at the moment aren't looking at the value of ships anymore. They're looking at the number of people it requires. Right? And again, if you're going to get 5 and do that, oh God, I can't even point properly. If you're going to do 5 and do that, why the hell wouldn't you just get one more or run with 5 on that?
Yeah,
and so this just does not add up compared to.
It is a. Go on. Compared to the Perseus, it doesn't add up. You're right.
Well, I was going to say the other ones are things like the Connie, the Corsair. They all have far less crew. The MSR, I think technically on MSR you can get away with 3 people. You know what I mean? Like, so yes, they are slightly different in their role, and it's a torpedo bomber. But also, I can take out a Harbinger, or I can take out an Eclipse. I can take 2 Eclipses, and it takes 2 people. And I've got redundancy because I've got 2 ships.
And you've got the same number of torpedoes. And if you look at a MIS, I think the MIS can take size 5 missile racks, which means it can take size 5 torpedoes. I could be wrong.
No. Missiles and torpedoes don't.
But a size 5 torpedoes, they're just... No. I know, the racks only go up to size 4, don't they? Yep.
No, you can't just take missiles and put them where torpedoes go and torpedoes where missiles go. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, because the rack's only up to size 4.
No,
So
you also can't. Yeah,
if the missiles only go to size 4, you can't put size 5 missiles on them.
Yes, but you also can't put torpedoes where missiles go. That's the thing you're missing. That's the big thing you're missing.
Because you can't get size 5 racks. If there are no size 5 missile racks, you can't do it because you can't put size 5 on a size 4 rack. So I'm not missing it.
If you say so, I'm just going to leave it there because that was a massive. You missed a major point, but that's fine. Right, we'll move on to the next question. What do we got here? Ed, oh my God, says, hey, all my questions is I got the ship upgrades F7A military Hornet upgrade in my hangar. Now I got an F7A Mark I ship. Will this stay like this? Please help. Yes, it will. Or they'll have an upgrade at some point where you can upgrade it to a Mark II. That's up to you, mate. You right, Algared?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yep. Just a twinge. She'll be right. I think you missed Rusty Pigeon Gaming's second question there, which was the will Hornet Mark I be worth it?
Well, we can tie it into this question because they're both Mark Is, but long story short,
okay.
It's a rarity thing. Do you like to collect rare ships? That's my answer. Algared, do you want to?
Yeah, and I think that's what Rusty Pigeon Gaming Channel's question asks. It says, do you think Mark I is worth it in game, or if you can sell them as an old timer or collectible? And it is that rarity aspect. It's a bit like why would you take a Scythe over a Glaive? And it's because the Scythe is the actual Vandal ship, whereas the others are rebuilt. So it's rare.
Yeah, they are.
But yeah,
they are trying to use it as FOMO too, that it will never be available again. But here's the other thing: it will be available in game like everything else. There'll be some quest chain or whatever that you can do, and you'll be able. Even if it's a limited time event, once every 2 years you can do this event and earn yourself a Mark I.
They even said that in the Spectrum post where they talked about it. It's the last time. The only thing they basically said, it's the last time it's going to be on sale in the store.
Yep.
And it's going to be available in the markets, but it's not the only way. It's not saying you will never ever be able to get it. There'll be other ways you can get it, even if it's stealing it from someone else.
Do you know that you don't have to buy it to secure it either? Just pick up a CCU to it and sit on it.
Yeah.
You could even melt it into buyback and buy it back from buyback as in the CCU. You don't have to rush out and buy it. Like if you're worried about the missing out part, just get a CCU and sit on it. And as I said, melt it into buyback. It's the same thing with the skins. Like they're going, these limited time skins. I just brought 5 of all of them, and tomorrow I'm melting them all off. And they'll be in buyback, and I'm buying back at any time. That's how you remove limited time things. You just buy them and melt them into buyback, and they are not limited anymore.
Indeed.
Buy them whenever you want.
Once it's in buyback,
And any skins that I think that are going to be really popular, like the carbon fiber concierge skins, I bought 10 of them. Because then I know I'll have ones to give to other people down the road, and I only need 1 or 2 for myself at most. All the others I'm doing for other people that I know that may want them. Like those, it's still available in the store now though. Those Sulian skins.
Yeah,
I've had a bunch of people that wanted to grab those.
Yep, Trevor Nelson, thank you for that $5. And he says, would you suggest melting a C2 and an MSR for the Ironclad? I love my C2, but the Ironclad is cool.
I think you're going to get more cargo with the Ironclad. You only need 2 people for a C2. I think we'll find when it comes out tomorrow, you probably need a few more for an Ironclad. So that would be the difference.
I think and I think you look at the turrets you could see on the Ironclad, and that already gives you by man turrets. That already tells you you've got a larger crew count.
Yep, and there's a couple of remote turrets as well, the ones that face the ground.
But the advantage is you could melt your C2 and MSR for the Ironclad, buy the Ironclad, and then melt the Ironclad and buy those things back if you decide you don't like it.
That's true as well. You got options there because once they're in buyback,
so there's plenty of options.
Yeah. Worst case scenario,
totally different.
Worst case scenario, pick yourself up a CCU, and then wait till it comes out, and then upgrade the C2 into the Ironclad. Again, secure that pricing for very little.
The beauty about melting ships is that if it was melting and it was gone for good and you could never buy it back, then it becomes a significant question. But if it's melting and it's in your hangar, it's in your buyback folder, and you can buy it back at any time, or melt and buy it back with credits any time. Where's the stress? So yeah, John Ski has a question for us, and I think a couple of comments as well. He says, Firebird missile count doubled from 12 to 24. Its signature reduction corrected from 20% to 40%. That's pretty good. The Retaliator, all turrets upgraded to size 3 turrets. That's again big. And the turret dead zone issues have been fixed apparently. So if they're all comments that are true, yeah, I think that bodes well for Vitali. The reduction of the signature on the Firebird is good, but the missile, as you said before, the missile count, it's still limited.
It's better, but it is significantly better, right? I'll give you that, right? Yeah. But again, I still put it to the other 2 ships, and I'd still take the other 2 variants. Yeah, it's a lot better than it was, and they obviously know that because they've changed it. It's like, oh shit, this thing's not selling. Everyone's trashing on it. Yeah, you know,
Rusty Pigeon Gaming's channel says that's on Spectrum, and the 40% reduction, like basically doubling its stealth, is huge. From 20% up to 40% for its stealth. That's huge. I'm gonna be honest. That's a big up.
That's probably the better of the 2 upgrades, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it is. Like, but I think the other one that really catches my interest is the size 3 turret upgrades on the Tally. They're all size 3 instead of size 3 and size 2. So that's a nice. That's really nice.
That's an improvement, but again, it's also the crew count.
Yeah, and the crew count is what is the struggle I struggle with as well.
It's 5. I don't think it needs to. Well, unless they can show us why. Because the only other things I can see is the turrets, right? So literally, if you drop the crew count to 3, I think that's kind of where it needs to be. Thank you, Arthur Vendelay, for the $8 super chat.
I could see, because I think the Tally's kind of the same size as a Connie. I used to fit on the same pad at Olisar. I would say give it the same crew as a Connie. It shouldn't need 4 max. But again, it's yin and yang, and at least that would give it 4 crew versus 6 crew on a Perseus. Yeah, I could see that. And the only other factor that comes in when you're looking at the Perseus / Retaliator is the $600 price tag versus a $200 price tag.
I think a lot of it is just not wanting to rework the whole ship as well, because as soon as you lower the crew count 3, you can remove beds, and that so then you're going to rejig that whole area, and then you got to move the turrets around. So as soon as you move the turrets around, you move the corridors around, you see where it's going. Like, it's basically becomes a whole new ship fairly quickly. So that's why they're not doing it. I can see that, but by the same token, I would hope that they at least put in the option to slave turrets. So like, if you're in those 2 back turrets, if you get in one, essentially what I'm shooting at, the other one should be able to shoot at. You know what I mean? So I hope there's some kind. And we had that. You and I looked at this. They had that tech back in World War II.
Yeah. World War II, they had turrets. The one turret was linked, and all the others were targeted to fire at the same point. And so
they did it all with
one turret done, they all fired.
It was all done with cables, so you could literally like whatever I shot at, all the other turrets on the ship would shoot at. It's if they did in World War II,
low tech solution.
Yeah, that's
Drake could do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Drake could be doing it. It's that simple. So yeah. And that's not bagging out Drake. That's just picking up the way for the audience. It's just picking up the way we've talked about Drake having low tech solutions versus say Origin, which are fully automated and
high tech solutions.
More about high tech solutions, and they'll have bonuses in different areas. So yeah. Hennypen says one issue with Retaliator's modules is no idea what the in-game prices will be. You do, because you look at the value of them in the store and you compare them to the value of ships. And that gives you an indication.
The most expensive one is $75, so that's akin to an arrow, so it's only a couple of mil or whatever. So yeah, at most. Brian Havoc, thank you for the basic membership on YouTube.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, so you can use the pricing of the fighters that are around the the things that are around that price to get the maximum. there are ships that are around, you know, an Aurora is around $35. So that gives you a rough idea of a price in game.
And again,
and I would expect that modules would be cheaper in game.
Again, we have vehicles that cost more than things like that too, and then they're cheaper in game. So
Yep.
I would argue modules are cheaper than vehicles. So
yeah,
you got to look at again. But once they do come in game, the very first time they sell a module in game, and you can also look at things like ball turrets and stuff like that. They're fairly cheap, right? They have ball turrets for this thing. And when you start to look at it like that, you start to realize modules are probably going to be fairly cheap in comparison to buying a full-fledged ship. And again, you got to remember, things are inflated because they're trying to raise money to make the game. We get that, right? But the other thing is we are purchasing things as consumers, right? So it's also a value proposition. And again, we have rich people and poor people, and not, you know, like, yes, you can have people that throw heaps of money at it and just go, gimme, here, take my money. But you've got poor people that want to get on this game, and so the value proposition to them, it goes both ways. You got to see it from both sides of the coin.
Yeah, and you know, the game is rigged so that people who are not time rich can advance, and it's also a game where people who are time rich but cash poor can advance in the game, and that was always been Chris's desire. He doesn't just want it to be a grind to get through. He wants it to be a game where the casual player, the guy who works at his job 9 till 6 or 9 till 5 each day and gets home and only has 3 or 4 hours a night to play, can actually play and enjoy the game.
Right, real quickly, we're about an hour and 10 minutes into the stream. We usually go for about 3 hours, and we've got 10 questions left. So if you want to get a question in, please feel free to do so, because we're probably going to run out.
And we've only answered about 5.
No, we've answered more than 10. But anyway.
Oh, well, I've been facetious.
That's fine.
All right, so that's that one. Yeah, I'm using the phone for the answers today rather than the iPad. So I've got the screen on the iPad, which I can see things better.
Relis Indominus says, question, did you use the rework pictures of the Harbinger... Wait, did you see the rework pictures of the Harbinger Matrix?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna go have a look and see what the hell he's
talking about. Have a look. Being limited to the iPad and the phone over the last few weeks has been it is horrid. I hate it.
Does he mean on the ship matrix? Is that why he said matrix?
I'm going to guess that's what he meant.
Man, I love it when put questions in context. It's fucking amazing. I will never take context for granted ever again. Where are we going here?
Well, so if that is true, if it is the matrix he's talking about. But while you're doing that, Nova 42 says
I'm already done.
All right.
There's nothing there. I'm really confused, and unless I go onto the actual pledge store and then go to ships and then go to Harbinger, but I don't see any.
Yep. That was a comment, so I don't need to answer that.
Okay, new pictures. Is that new, Algared?
Sorry?
Is that new? That does look slightly new. Or unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, maybe. I'd be a liar if I said I've pored over those pictures.
No, they look like concept ones from... Yeah, they're old. They're just the concept ones from back in the day. They're not actual in-game. They're in the editor thing they use. Yeah. Can you give us who else again? Indominus and Dreamless? Can you give some context, please, dude, if you want us to go further on that, because that has really stumped me. Right. Next one, Algared.
So Humphrey says, or Humphrey says, I haven't seen you guys' thoughts on the Polaris hangar doors since we saw them in ISC. Please dish your thoughts or give us your thoughts. Yeah, look, as we said yesterday, or I think you said yesterday, the way the doors are, we've seen 3 or 4 variations in the last several months, and it's clearly something they've been working on. they went from a door that just slid open to doors that opened at hinges to now doors that just part. And I think that just shows they've been working and reiterating the Polaris doors to get the best fit. I think they're settled on the doors. You know, if the doors work, I don't care. I don't care whether it's the hatch or hinges.
Did you like the old fold-out ones, or do you prefer the kind of flatter one? I guess it really doesn't matter realistically, but
doesn't matter.
I think the animation of the other ones kind of would have been cooler, but again, never seeing them, the final product, it's hard to. And I'm not going to go make me both doors and I'll pick which one's better. But you get my point, right? It's the unknown of not knowing what would have looked cooler.
If I'm, and this is me as a non-programmer thinking about and the impact on the graphics and all the rest of it, folding and twisting and moving rather than sliding is probably a lot more strain or stress or moving parts.
Yeah, so it's an animator that would have been doing it, and you are correct. Yes, it is because you're essentially talking 2D planes versus 3D. Yes.
You know, so I would go the cheaper version, which is probably the sliding doors. To me, works fine. But yeah, and it's less strain or stress on.
In this case, though, so what they did, because of the kind of hexagon nature or Dorito shape of the ship, they've actually had the two outer ones slide in. So it's essentially 6 doors. So you've got 2 that slide in that follow the diagonal, and then the center one, and it's the same thing on the other side. Where if they'd done it the other way, they could have just gone. But then it would have looked weird though, because if you have a diamond, the hinge would have been on the points. And so therefore the door would have come out even further to compensate. Which is why I reckon they've gone to the slide one.
Yep, and if you look at the 890 jump, its hangar is triangular as well, and they use the sliding doors, and so they've already got a solution for that, a triangle bay in, so why not just use it? Yeah. So to me it's a non-issue. It looks good. If it looks good and it works, I don't care. Yeah. And that might sound horrid, but yeah.
I was actually surprised by how big it looked too in the photos. It seemed a lot bigger, or not the photos, in the video. I was actually kind of surprised how big it turned up being. Like when the Scorpius came out of it, I was quite surprised. As in like how much space was around that thing. That thing has definitely grown from the original concept, as in the hangar. And I think literally. And I think any fears you and I had about, remember back in the day we used to sit there and go, the Defender would be able to fit because when it's like folded up, because it was all about 14 meters and stuff back in the day. All that has gone out the window because of the metrics now. And anything that is essentially an S2, no problem.
Well, it should fit, and
I would even be suspecting that some of the medium ships may even be able to sneak in there now. Whether or not they can use the facilities is another question, but they might be able to potentially sit in there,
Yeah, I think it'll be the same. It's the same type of thing we saw when we discussed the Odyssey. Whatever fits in the Odyssey is going to fit in the Polaris.
Yep.
And I think that's the beauty of the metric system.
Yep.
And it makes, and once you've got the metric pads, anything that will fit in a size 2 pad there is going to fit on the size 2 pads on a Carrot or a Kraken or not a Carrot, but you know what I mean.
It's not the same, but it's a little bit like, when they kind of got rid of gimbals and it just simplified the whole weapons thing? It's the same thing. By just having those pads, you don't have to go this weird oblong shape. Like all those does it fit questions go out the frickin' window. Because that's one thing that perpetually really annoys both me and Algared is you get those 10 for the chairman, or those 10 questions they do about a ship, and you want those really pivotal answers, and some idiot goes, does this banana fit in this box? And it's like, oh my god, what the why waste a question?
and I get that is a question that that person really wants to know, because they've got that ship, they're looking at this ship, they want to know, am I going to be able to use the things I bought with this ship, or have I got to look for something else? I get that. But those questions
are so easily figured out by asking the community. You don't have to ask CIG, because you can almost figure it out by something else that's in the image. You can. There's almost always a human in the image now, and you can use that to work out the size, and then it's really it's really
and these days
at the
I'd
point
say,
now where it's just ludicrous at this point. Yeah.
These days I'd say if you've got that question, ask Grim.
Yeah.
STAR-JM.
Yeah, reach out to STAR-JM. He'll do it for you. He does it on his stream all the time. All the time.
So So don't ask Sergio, ask STAR-JM.
Yeah. That's it.
He'll set you straight. He'll tell you whether it fits or not if you're unsure.
100%. Yeah.
So Aurelius and Dominus, do you think they will reveal org tools with CitizenCon or a matchmaker system because of a Polaris that is coming with IAE?
I still think it's a little bit of cart before the horse time. Yeah, I still think they're building a lot of the foundational stuff, and that's what me, Algared, and Space really worked out that first episode at the start of the year, didn't we? That this year is found. They did the foundational stuff for Squadron, bringing that over. What is now the foundational stuff that is needed for Star Citizen? And base building becomes clear and present very quickly when you sit down and start to work it out, because it fundamentally touches. You'll have salvage bases, mining bases, like every type of profession. It needs buildings. There's no buildings in Squadron, right? So if you look at all the gameplay that you're bringing in, you're going from combat-based gameplay to all these different types. But then you look in a multiplayer environment. The one thing that's missing, you had ships and vehicles in Squadron. You don't have the buildings. You need the buildings to go there as well. And so that's the big fundamental difference between a single-player game and the multiplayer game. It sounds weird, but it's the buildings. And so that's really what they've got to work on first. And then by getting the buildings, you've got all those tools. And we've seen that as they've gone through it. It's all about tools, Algared, wasn't it? To speed up and lessen the development time.
And I'm assuming when you're saying the no buildings, you're talking about player-owned and run and organised and that type of building.
Yes.
And just clarifying, because people are, I know that someone would say, oh, no, there's buildings in, but the other thing is, we're actually seeing buildings and templates of buildings being used in the PU. Like the new centres, the outposts. They've all been, I think, tier 1, tier 0 type buildings to actually plan how they're going to do it and get the room system working, and even at that level. But as time goes on, it's going to be applied to player-owned buildings, and then how much we can control depending on the size,
I think the other side
and everything else. But
I think the other side of what you just said there is a lot of the buildings and those tools were used for Squadron, and now you move it over to a multiplayer environment. You could clearly see from the IC last year where they were talking about procedurally generating the inside of them and stuff like that. They were moving from these, because like you build a single-player environment, it just sits there. It doesn't change. Right? Now you're going into a multiplayer environment where they clearly want things to be a bit more dynamic. You can see they're planning those systems out. So this is essentially building 2.0, if you want to put it that way, right?
And being able to change from destroy the door to actually repair the door to all of those types of things. As
buildings like ships and buildings, just like ships and vehicles, gives you a lot of emergent gameplay, and then you start to cross-pollinate all those, and it goes to a different level as well. So. And then missions around base building, fundamentally, like base building is not that similar from medical and repair. You got medical that is essentially for people, repair for ships, and base building falls in line with buildings, believe it or not, and they are all interconnected.
I don't disagree at all on what you said there, and I think you're right. I think it's probably a little bit too early for CitizenCon to be the matchmaker system, and for it to be an org system. I can see
it might even be too early for base building, right? It really depends how we haven't seen anything on it yet. We just knew that they were starting to work production earlier this year, right? So you'd have to assume they've kicked it off by now. But again, I think most of that we'll probably see an update at CitizenCon, what we're going to get there. And let's not forget Squadron. Squadron is the big thing this year. That anything we get that thing out the door, that's great, because now we can start working on Star Citizen.
Well, I had someone tell me during the week they saw Star Citizen ads on YouTube. I hadn't seen them before, and their comment was, "Wow, it looks great."
Finally, their YouTube Premium ran out, and they got Star Citizen ads. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I would hazard a guess that what we're seeing in Arena Commander is also probably the first steps of that matchmaker type system. So,
agreed.
Are we seeing a matchmaker? Yeah, they're working on it, and I think we're seeing it in Arena Commander. When we will get it in PU, well, yeah, who knows? But I think it's coming. It'll come eventually. So yeah. Oz Veteran, do you see hundreds of ships will be shelved in the near future? Yeah, I can see lots of ships being shelved in the future. I could see a lot of the very first ships probably getting the Mark I treatment. So I could see the Aurora. I could see
Connie.
Yeah, I could see lots of.
I think I know you talked about the Aurora. I think that's possible because of the bed longing, but I think the two biggest candidates would be the Freelancer and the Connie, and then Aurora would be in third place.
I think based on the issues that the Connie has, it's certainly the Phoenix has, where it's got things that still haven't been added, and you look at it and go, where would you add it? It really does feel like it needs a new ship, and I hate it. I hate the idea of that because I do like the Connie the Connie Phoenix being one of the actual Connie line, but yeah, I think the more I think about it, the more I think you're right. It really does need to be its own separate ship.
I'm just thinking,
and a bigger version.
As you and I are looking at going to CitizenCon this year, for our safety, do you think we need Kevlar vests? Just in case CIG Trotter takes us out with all our harsh comments. Because I have a feeling we're going to get multiple attacks when we... What have you been saying to him?
I think we're more likely to get attacked. Well, I'm probably more likely to get attacked by Drake lovers than anything else. But yeah, it might be something we need to look at. Getting those Kevlar vests to protect us from angry citizens.
Not angry citizens, angry devs.
Well, John Crew might want to hang us because we keep having people buy the Endeavour, which is increasing his workload.
Yeah. We probably should make up
like buy the ship.
Yeah. We probably should make some kind of like robe or like necklace, like cult necklace of Endeavour, and just present it to him and go, "Here, welcome to the cult."
Yes.
Or a big book that says the cult of the Endeavour, and just give it to him.
Yes, the cult of the Endeavour and Church of the Crystal. Yes, well, there you go, sir.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I could see him hating us for that because, the thing, the more people who have the ship kind of raises it up in the order they kind of do it because lots of people want to so so I could see him hating us for that. But yeah. All right, Linus says, sorry, but can you explain again why you said that it won't be possible to buy a Heartseeker? I haven't understood yet. Heartseeker is the Valentine's Day skin on a Mark I Hornet. The Mark I Hornet
Super
is
Hornet,
not going to be sold in the stores.
Wasn't it a Super Hornet?
Maybe a Super Hornet. I can't remember, but it's a Hornet. But it's a Mark I.
Yeah.
And the Mark Is are not going to be sold in the store or in the rental kiosks after Invictus. They're retiring it. And so you're not going to be able, because it's a Mark I, you won't be able to buy the Heartseeker Mark I on Valentine's Day. Maybe we'll see a Heartseeker Mark II.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been confirmed. That hasn't been said yet. Hasn't been confirmed. It would be nice if they actually changed the Heartseeker to an actual skin rather than being a default paint job on the actual ship, which makes it a variant. So
I think that's the type of thing they need to do across the board too. All the old Best in Show skins, all the skins, all the like the what do they have at the Avenger one and the Comet. You know the ones I'm talking about? They're like $15 for a skin that should be $5. And yes, you can argue you're getting weapons and stuff with them, but nobody wants to buy that shit. They just want the skin.
So Limited Respawns has a question. He says, "What's the difference between torps and missiles?" And the difference is for size. So size 1 to 4 are considered missiles. They're anti-fighter, anti-missile, anti-torpedo type stuff. Size 5 and up are torpedoes. And missiles can only go up onto size 4 racks and you only have size 1, 2, 3, 4 missile racks, which means you can't put a size 5 on a size 4. And you can't, and then you can't put the missiles on the torpedo racks. So, but the main difference is size, payload, and speed. So 1 to 4 are fast, 5 up are slow. So yeah, that's, I think, the only difference.
I think it would be a little bit like the weapons too, how they've said like size 5 weapons are really tailored at bigger ships and 4 to 1 are kind of tailored down. I think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So missiles are kind of more aimed at fighters, where torpedoes are large enough to overcome.
I think they actually took the gun sizes from what they did with missiles. So missiles were always 1 to 4. And the Gladiator was the first torpedo bomber we had, which had size 5.
Yep.
And that was the start of torpedoes. And it had it had missiles on its wings as well, but it had size 5 torpedoes. And the torpedoes were slower, missiles were faster. And when they came to kind of bringing the weapons into that standardization, they went the same idea. 1 to 4 is anti-fighter, anti-torpedo. 5 up is anti-ship. So yeah. Nick Jack. So regarding my luxury dilemma, I have an Idris and a Kraken P in buyback. Store credits for 1. I'm leaning towards Idris for the Battlestar vibes. Any recommendations?
It really comes down to what do you want more, right? And this is every time we talk about this ship, is one is a combat support, the other is combat. So one is more versatile, but one is combat. Like, so if you want the combat, go Idris. If you want the flexibility, go Kraken. So you can't quite match the Idris in combat, but you can do combat and you can do other things. Yeah. So that's why I went Kraken, because I wanted to do both. So I went Kraken. But if I was just going for, like, I'm for combat nut, the Idris.
Looking at your comment about going for that Battlestar, and I'm assuming Battlestar Galactica vibe, I would have thought the Kraken fed that vibe more than an Idris. For me, the Idris is more the Enterprise going on its long 5-year mission.
I would actually say the Idris is more from the stuff you and I have gone through, speculated, right? The Kraken is more ship-based, and the Idris is more ground-based, because you can land it and put a bunch of vehicles in it as well. And then this is the eternal question. Neither of those are luxury ships. I'm really confused by his wording. What the
He's talking. Luxury is doing things your way.
I thought it was. I thought it was going to be like an 890 jump 600i question or some shit.
I was thinking
or Banu Mansion Man.
300i or 600 or something like that. But no. So I've got all these credits, and I've got a choice of an Idris or a Kraken. Yeah. And it can only afford one of them.
So I hope that answers your question, Nick. It just comes back down to combat or combat and support, right? Are you playing in an org that is really about, working together? Are you an industry org, or are you a combat org? If you're a combat org, you go into the Idris. Like, you can start to look at it when you break it down to simplicities, right? And it's combat versus combat support. You're going to have a more flexible time in the Kraken than you are in the Idris, and that's what you look at, what your priorities are. Again, this is almost like a mini fix my fleet between two ships.
It is a mini fix my fleat.
Yeah.
I'd do 2 columns, and
pros and cons.
Pros.
Yep.
Literally all the things you see that ship offering, and do it for both ships. And the one that does the most for you, that's the one I'd go for.
And then a little bit of grain of salt is taken, if you're in an org and the people you're playing with, take in their opinion too. But don't let them force you into one that you like. The one you want is the priority, but if that happens to line up with them, that even sells it even more. But if they're against you, then you still get the one you want, right? Don't let your org push you around. You get what you want, because at the end of the day, they can kick your ass to the curb. That's why it's important you do what you want. Yeah.
And the other thing is, if it's an either or for you, and you don't really, I don't really care because they're both great. Have a look at your org, and if your org's got 5 Idrises, and no Krakens, well, that might be the one that you go, well, yeah, I'll get a Kraken because we're short on Krakens. Or if it's the other way around, go the Idris. If it's doesn't matter for you, then go the one that is going to work best in your org. But again, as X said, don't let the org say, oh, you must have this ship, because that sucks.
I think Nick Jack, thanks, mates. I get your message. I will make a pro-con. Good advice. Yep. if you need any more help, you can always ask in. This is one thing we haven't pushed this Invictus sale. Is there on the Discord? There is a CCU help, and there is only fleets, and the ship scrutineers. There's like channels on there for days to help you with this shit. And we have people that are literally being vetted by Algared and myself that can answer your questions.
I think Crucibles, aren't they?
Yes, they're called Crucibles. Yes. And if you go into
and Crucibles, and
if you go into the CCU helper channel, you'll see them because they've all got that little teal. I think it's a square from memory, Algared. It's a little square icon.
I think it is a little square. I can't remember either, but yeah. So you go in there, and the teal guys, the guys who are vetted, they know what we're on about. But other people will give their opinion as well, and sometimes the advice they give is spot on, and sometimes it's not what I'd say, but hey, that's okay.
Okay.
Take on board whatever anyone says, and
Yep. So I've got a first-time chatter on Twitch. Now, normally when we get questions, Topaz, we get people to put question in the question, and our bot sucks it up. But because you're a first-time chatter and you don't know what's going on, we'll answer this one for you. So Topaz says, is there a fighter in the game that you guys would consider buying with real-life money? If so, which one? Now, again, if you want to buy a ship, you buy the ship. Right, we are giving you generalized financial value advice, right? So you don't have to do anything we say. We're just trying to be your conscience on your shoulder, trying to make your dollar go further. So you do you, right? So this would come down to a personal thing for me and Algared, right? Now, I think Algared, you and I could safely say we both own a Raven as an example.
We do own a Raven, but because you can't readily get one of those.
Yes, but we own a fighter. That's one of
the
only ones I own.
We own the Raven.
Yep.
And it is I love the Raven because it's not just a fighter. It is basically a defensive spy, sneak in, Inforunner, then get out, and if you're caught, you EMP them and run.
Now, I don't own it. I think the other one I think you and I both enjoy is the Hurricane.
Yeah, it was in terms of fighter, that was the one I was actually thinking of off the cuff because it's the one that's readily available. Because that is such I love that ship.
And I think we both agree as armor and that come into the game, that'll change a little bit. It'll become a little bit more of a glass cannon. But right now, God, that thing is fun to do with two people. It's probably some of the best fun you can have with one other mate in the game.
Yep.
Just the teamwork that comes out and the communication that goes back and forward. It is perfect.
Yeah, and I hear people say the same works for the Scorpius because the Scorpius pilots don't have the same capacitor, but I don't see it. For me, it doesn't do it. It doesn't have that same feel. The Hurricane, for me, just does it. The other ship that I do like that kind of falls into that is the Gladiator. The Gladiator is the clunky old... I know you keep saying
it's an underdog. It's an underdog.
It is an underdog, but I view it more like a World War II, early World War II bomber.
Well, I view it like it's a World War II game in space, so it's like a World War I ship. Yep. That's why I say that. But it just visualizes that it's behind where it should be, and hopefully it gets the update it deserves. Like it clearly needs the turret up gun and stuff, but there's something about it when we fly it. It's just got this vintage feel.
It doesn't feel like a Fairley Firefly, which was the British biplane torpedo bomber. It feels more like a Dauntless torpedo bomber, the US bomber. That's what it feels like to me. And it's just that it's clunky, it's tanky, or it feels tanky. It is slow. It's just a horrible ship. It's such a lovely ship to fly. It's a weird conundrum. But anyway, moving on. Nova 42.
Yeah, that's one. Go ahead.
Will the F7 Mark IIs not out yet also be $50 over the Mark I price? Speculation.
I would expect that they would offer free upgrades to those for people that have them, but then eventually, yes.
I would hope so. But eventually, it'll be $50.
I think it essentially confirms that they are coming, but the other part of it is why they're not out yet, and it's probably because they're not needed for Squadron 42.
Yep.
Which puts them on to 12 months away after Squadron's out or whatever.
So because the Mark IIs, I think Mark IIs and F7As, Mark IIs, they're the kind, and the F8s, they're kind of, we see them later on, I think, in Squadron. But they don't have the Ghost or the Tracker as variants. They might be in as Mark I versions, but yeah.
Speculation, Algared. Add them to the 8 Anvil families of ships, and more reason to do Anvil after RSI.
Yeah. Add them to man. I would like to see
Liberator, Crucible, Gladiator, Hornet family of ships, and
all getting reworked and polished and nice, and
and a couple of new ones.
And I wouldn't mind seeing, even if those Mark I's are no longer on sale, they just stay in the big packs. Just for, that being, that's just me.
Yeah,
that's just me.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's just to collect the bug in me, taking a nibble at me, but yeah.
The Old Man Hurston Legacy Pack. That's what they should call it. The decrepit Old Man Hurston Legacy Pack. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Yeah. Now, Sonny. That's not Old Man Hurston. That's just me doing an old man. So, Carlton Whitfield says, "Do you think the Starfarer is fixable? And if so, will it ever be fixed?" Yeah, it'll get reworked.
Yeah, it will.
The problem with Starfarer is I think they built it as a FPS level.
Yeah, they built it for that almost
primarily
for that Citizen Con, didn't they? Oh, excuse me.
I think so. It was like I got the impression the original idea was capture Viedris.
Yep.
For Arena Commander. That was too ambitious, and so they then went. And then I kind of got the idea they went Starfarer will do the same type of thing, but also with the Starfarer they were going, okay, what do we find on cargo ships and ships in the crew quarters and behind the scenes on cargo ships or cruise liners, it is cramped, it is narrow, and the crawl spaces are there, and it just didn't work.
I don't think it was just for that Citizen. Now I think about it, it's also in Squadron, so it was probably used as a level in Squadron as well.
Well, we know that scene where you got Reclaimer salvaging a Starfarer, I think.
Well, you can crawl around in it as well. Like, it's one of the only, like, this is back when they were going to have crawl spaces. Remember the original Vanguard pitch? That was meant to be a ship that was, like, it's the whole reason I brought it was you're going to crawl around in it. Like, it was meant to be like one of the World War II bombers that you crawl around in. And then they changed it and got rid of all the crawl stuff.
And then that got wiped. That got wiped, and then the MSR was going to have the crawl spaces. And you could see why they went crouch spaces in the MSR, because there was such a hullabaloo about the Vanguard losing crawl spaces.
It came down to
they didn't want to do it again, did they?
It came down to the AI. If you actually think about it, so when you walk around, you're vertical, so you're on a smaller surface area, essentially. So you're walking around like this. But as soon as you go prone, the character is now turning like this, and it creates so many more problems for AI, because when an AI goes around the corner or whatever, they're not calculating that. You've got to calculate the full length of the body, and they'd just be going through walls and all that weird shit. That's why they got rid of it.
And they didn't want stuff going through walls, and so crawl spaces just didn't work.
Yeah,
they didn't work for the
but
avatars,
it still works
for the AI.
It still works in a single player game though, because you can go through the crawl spaces, right? But it doesn't work in a multiplayer environment with AI.
It doesn't work if you're going through crawl spaces in the third person view, because again you'd be getting caught on that animations. In first person view, no problem. But I think that's exactly why they can crawl spaces. They just weren't working with the NPCs or the character avatars in third person. They didn't want people to see something clipping into the walls. They were trying to do things right, and the only way to solve that was crouch spaces, which meant the MSR ended up growing in height.
I think at the end of the day, you can do most of it with internal reworks, right? And if there's space left over in the ship, I don't think it matters too much, because a lot of you could essentially take out the crawl spaces and then just widen all the other hallways and stuff like that, right? Yeah. And I think that would fix most of the problem. And I think the other clear one is getting up. Stairs is a pain in the ass, but if you just had stairs that kind of go all the way up, or a central elevator or something like that, it'd fix almost all the problems.
Yep. And you can see that kind of consideration for AI and avatars moving around ships in the Phoenix. When the Phoenix first came, the rework of the Phoenix came out, the tables and the chairs were so far apart, and you'd go, why is that so far apart? But Second you started moving around, you realized exactly why they were so spread out. It was navigation. So you weren't clipping and tripping over or getting hung up on geometry. And if they were doing that in the open space, imagine how much of a problem that would have been in enclosed corridors. So yeah, 100% see those issues.
I was wondering if we should do a poll, Algared, about my thoughts on the Buccaneer treatment for the Phoenix. Would you like to do one or not?
The Buccaneer treatment for the Phoenix.
You know,
yes, yeah. You could do that, but I think you're right. The Phoenix just needs a rework, and I think it needs to be a brand new ship. And I think we'll see that as they retire the old Connie line and bring out the Mark 7s or whatever they call it. But yeah. While you're doing that, if you're putting up a poll, I'm going to take Monster Avery's question. He says, "What do you think the odds are at CitizenCon? They talk on modularity and modules ships will get, like the Jav, Carrot, the Cat, getting the official modules." And it's nice to see that comment from John Crew indicating modules are a thing on the Carrot, the Cat. Look, I think we'll see that when they're ready to talk about it. I'd love to see it earlier. I'd love to see talk on the Jav rooms. I'd love to see more on the Carrack's rooms. I know one of the rooms they did talk about the Carrack was additional crew quarters and science labs and med bays and stuff, but they were all, I put that in the same category really as a talk about the Caterpillar's modules.
Yeah. So really quickly, sorry to interrupt, but people are asking what is the Buccaneer treatment? So the Buccaneer treatment is, instead of the Phoenix being a variant, they break it off and make it a whole new ship that is, you know.
So I have a feeling people don't even know the history of the Buccaneer.
Yeah. So the Buccaneer treatment was, they had the Cutlass, and it was half combat, half kind of cargo-y, and people were complaining they weren't getting their original pitch, so they essentially made a free upgrade. They made the Buccaneer, which is the more combat-y ship, and they gave you a free upgrade. That's why the Buccaneer cost more than the Cutlass, because it allowed you to upgrade to the Buccaneer.
And when and this was a case when, it would have been what, 2015, 2015, 2014, somewhere around there. They would have been a bit later, because it was when they changed their ships to flying like large ships, and the Cutlass came out and it was flying like a wallowing fat pig. It was woeful, and people said this is supposed to be a fast, agile fighter, and CIG said we've reconfigured it so it flies more like the way we intended as a cargo ship. And so there was this hullabaloo. You sold this ship as a fast, agile fighter with a second person and cargo capacity. And so they actually broke it off, created the Buccaneer as for those who wanted the fighter aspect, and they left the Cutlass Black as the kind of cargo-esque ship. After they did that, probably a year or two later, they redid the Cutlass, and it became that lean, mean fighting machine we now know it as. And yeah, I think people who took the upgrade option were kicking themselves after that, because the Cutlass became the way it was, I think, originally intended.
I'll probably eventually go into a C1 Spirit or something like that anyway, down the line.
Yeah.
Or melted it and brought the Cutlass back or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Next question. Monster Avery says, what do you think...
No, that one we're done.
Oh, okay. Berenga269 says, do you think that the more ships will be retired in the future? For example, ships they simply do not want to update to sell to new ones instead? The Starfarer comes to mind. Yes and no, right? I think you've got to look at the reason why that was done, because it was for squadron reasons, right? I go to the other side of it and look at the Starfarer. The Starfarer is a much bigger asset. Rebuilding that from the ground up is entirely possible, but again, it comes down to development time. We don't know what they're planning in the background, and that again, to speculate, you're missing those key pieces of information. But all I'd say at this time, and Algared, I think you'd agree with me, it could go either way. I'll do what is required.
Yeah. They could say, yeah, we bring out a Mark II Starfarer and it's totally redone. But I if I was a betting man, I'd say I think the Starfarer will get more of a treatment like they're doing with the 600i, where
Agreed.
they're redoing the interior, but they're not changing the ship per se.
Yep. I'd agree with you on that. The outside is too much work just to throw away, and not everything on the inside needs to be redone. It is really just the above the cargo bay area, essentially, that really needs to be done. So what a third, or maybe half the ship needs to be run at most on the inside.
And when they put the refineries in, or they fill, they can do stuff to fill up the cargo bay even more. But yeah, like you said, they can go overweight, but my gut says it'll be more an interior rework than anything else.
They've also gone back and updated that ship so it could take the
fuel,
the fuel things, and they redid all so they've done work on it showing that they are almost intending to stick with it, right? So I think it's just a rework of the interior, and again, it's just above the cargo bay, so at most it's like a half to a third. You don't really need to redo the rooms at the top. It's just how you get up. It's that middle section where the reactor and all that is the problem, because it's got all these weird elevators and stuff like that, and the crawl spaces. You kind of just redo that section and you're fine. It's literally
going to say, I was literally going to say, and the crawl spaces. And
again, it's like I said, if you just remove the crawl spaces and then widen all the rooms out and make space. So I'd literally just put a set of stairs in there that would take up some of that space, and you could just rejig the rooms around. It is a retexture work job, but again, it's not the whole thing.
Yeah.
So all right. So we had 83% of people on Twitch with a total of 6 votes. They didn't have very many votes. And on YouTube, give me a second, I'll just check it here. In the poll on YouTube, we got
about 50.
60% of people with 53 votes said yes. So both of them say yes, but it is a little, I'd say it's roughly about 75% based on 83 and 60. So somewhere in the middle there, of people think that it should be its own variant. And
with 53 people voting on YouTube, that's a fair number.
Yep.
So
because the other one I could have put in the poll there is I don't give a shit. Because I think that would have got a lot of votes too. Because you either love the Phoenix or you hate it. And I like all ships, but that ship, and the Connie as a whole has some problems, but I think that one is exacerbated because the Connie has so many problems, and then it just goes to a different level because they've tried to shoehorn shit into it.
I think part of the problem with Phoenix was they sold it with so much promise and so many things, and then over the years they kind of dialed everything back.
Yep.
And the few things that are left, they still haven't put in, and it still feels like it's got problems.
Look at it this way. If you made it a whole new ship, you could do 2 variants. You could do the piano variant and hot tub variant. Bang, done. Problem solved. You get what I mean, though, right?
I would love to have one without the hot tub.
But if you did a Phoenix and it had 2 variants, you could literally, or you could even make it modular. They could make more money because people would buy both. You know what I mean? Like, so do that. Make it modular, and you can literally buy, the hot tub module or the piano module or whatever, and maybe even make a third one to sell.
I'd love to see a hot tub even have a purpose, like it's part of the, it's part of the water cooling system for an engine or a gun system or something, just so. But just to do stuff. But I could see that.
I want the swimming pool variant where the whole cargo bay is just a giant swimming pool with glass, and you could just see. Do you know those, like in the movie where they had the swimming pool over there and it's like glass and you can see the person swimming in it? That, but in 890 jumps, you can go underwater and look at space. That'd be mad.
Swimming in liquid oxygen.
It was just a ridiculous town. A little bit like what's her name in Passengers? Jennifer Lawrence in Passengers. A little bit like that.
Yeah.
You could go to Crazy Town. You could have like a aquarium variant, and it's just like massive walls of aquarium. You could have like they have almost like the Collector in Guardians of the Galaxy, where he had people in, or not people, but you know what I mean, like artifacts and stuff like that. So you could really go into people's insane luxury variants. So like, the Collector variant, the the giant swimming pool Playboy variant. I heard someone write in a disco ball or disco. So someone that wants to have.
Yeah.
Well, that makes it more social. If you could play music in that variant, you could have a DJ party variant essentially.
I would have loved to see anything other than the hot tub, even in that room.
Yeah.
I would have, a library, a sitting room, a disco room, put the piano in that room, so you've still got the dining table. Anything I would have preferred to have in the hot tub. Yeah. I've always hated the hot tub in that thing. But I also get the crowded nature of a Phoenix. I get that it's CIG trying to say, not CIG, but RSI trying to say, hey, we can do a luxury ship, and kind of cramming everything into this small Winnebago.
You have the glamping variant, which is just, upgraded living modules, and it has, so you and a few friends there as well. And why can't the people that live in the back also be the pilot? Why does it have to have a crew?
No,
do you know what I mean, right? Like why can't they make it more that it's a luxury ship, but you fly it yourself? That would remove a lot of the crew bullshit that it needs as well.
Well, that's the problem with the way they sell. They sell the 890 jump. The main suite is said, oh, that's a captain's cabin. No, that's your luxury suite. It's kind of a quarterdeck idea on old sailing ships, and that's where the captain's cabin was. But if you're talking the luxury passenger area, you're looking at two different things. The Connie would certainly fit by that, and people talk about the crew being on those things. The other thing that I find with the Connie is they've really tried to, RSI tried to shove all the luxury, all the nice things into this little frame. And then you get Origin come out with their 600 and say, no. When you're doing luxury, you don't cram everything in. You spread it out. Use space.
It's literally
the 600 is.
It's literally opposite of the 400i and the 600i and the 890 jumps approach. Just real quick, Imachuka wants a Gordon Ramsay's version. He wants a cooking variant.
Well, that's your 890 jump, isn't it?
Well, no, he just wants a glorious kitchen.
He just
What about a like a YouTube influencer variant? Like the Mako on steroids, but it's like a stage or something.
Well, that's what the Mako is.
Yeah.
But, and the 890 jump with it's basically got a whole floor. Kitchen in the 890 jump is massive. It's an industrial kitchen with a great big walk-in fridge. That's your chef kitchen or your chef ship. And it's got a restaurant attached to it. So. But yeah, it's Anyway, moving on.
Next question. Does the
Hawkeye.
Eclipse? Question from Hawkeye. I know your motto about buying fighters, but how much of a savings on Eclipse would make it worth it? It wouldn't for me. There are ships like the Constellation, the MSR, the Corsair that are all cheaper and far superior.
Yep.
You're talking about a single seat fighter versus ones that are multi-crew. Like there's just no comparison. None.
Yep.
And if you think about how often you're going to use a combat vehicle is niche, right? Because you're only really going to use it for that particular role. But then when you go into a single seat torpedo bomber, it becomes even more niche, right? Because it's only a combat vehicle that can be used in a certain situation, right? And then so when you look at most combat stuff, it's going to be done on the weekends, like raids in World of Warcraft. They're going to be on the weekend, but then you're not always going to need a torpedo bomber for every weekend. So it goes from like once. Well, obviously, you can use combat ships during the week for escorting that as well, right? But again, how often are you going to be wanting escorted by a torpedo bomber? If you've got a massive fleet, yes, I can see it. But again, why wouldn't you take a Retaliator? Why wouldn't you take a Polaris? Because if you've got lots of people, you take that. So they're going to be used more often than the Eclipse on its own. The Eclipse is a strategic strike craft. It goes in under the radar. Hardly ever see it. It's when you must kill something. Right. Again, I would say it's probably tailored more at bases than like a craft or something like that. Because again, if you're going to take a craft, you're going to overdo it with a Polaris. You're going to send in the size 10s.
Now, question for you, Hawkeye, because you go on and say building a CCU chain and so far made it to 190, still building, don't want a tally. Is that because you don't want a tally because of it needs 5 crew and you only want to do solo, or is it just you don't like the tally? Because if you just don't like the tally, make your Eclipse part of a chain to, say, a Polaris.
Same thing though. If you want an Eclipse, it's the same thing. If he's got his mind set on the Eclipse, you go get the Eclipse. We are purely talking value, buddy,
absolutely,
right?
Yep.
But by the same token, like I can crack things out and go, well, let's look at some other ships around there. You got a Caterpillar at 330. You've got an Endeavour at 350, a Crucible at 350. You know, you double the price of that thing, and you literally get up to a Perseus and Polaris territory. And how much more are you going to do with a Perseus or Polaris over that? A shit ton, right? So I just put these questions out to you, Hawkeye. You've got to look the whole gamut, right? Because as soon as you add another person to it, you can double the value of the ship, and what else can you get that would actually do similar things, right?
And other ships to consider in terms of that line. Yes, it's not going to have the same size missile like Torpedoes, but a miss, you know, gives you that varied gameplay. So yes, it's not as stealthy. Yes, it's not as fast, but it offers other options in terms of gameplay. And so there's all those considerations to consider. But
well, half the price you can get a Gladiator too. Now it's not quite good at the moment, but it'll get fixed.
But at the end of the day, if that is a ship that speaks to you, that's the ship you want to go for. And look, go for as cheap as you can get it. But
well, our mate Diabolus has got one, doesn't he? He loves that thing. Right, I've actually got one right now at the moment too, but it's destined to be upgraded and turned into something else.
You'll remember that Snake, who used to join us on the channel, he also loves it. The profile of the Eclipse was his icon because he loved it so much. You know, and it is a nice ship, but
it's also the icon for It's also the icon for Fix My Fleet.
It is. But if you're looking at just pure value of ship, we'd say so your finest. But Gladiator speaks to me. I love that. I don't think I'd ever look at even melting or upgrading the one I've got. So you know but I'm aware that it's not the best value of ship in terms of cash. So you go with what you want, and if you can bring the price down, do it.
Yeah, just keep
get as low as you can.
Yeah, just keep buying those Warbond CCUs. Again, it's perception of value, man. It's got to be valuable to you, worth the price. It's like another way to look at it, a different ship is like the Perseus. We tell you it's not good value, but me and Algared got it for roughly $300. So that was it's worth what you're prepared to pay at the end of the day. And we didn't think it was worth paying $675, but at $300, not so bad. Yeah, because that's roughly what it's worth. Yeah. Put it this way. Would you take a Retaliator or a Perseus at $300? That's essentially what I've just said, right? And we had this graphic up before, right? And again, like
I would, as much as I like the Tally, I'd take the Perseus at $300. Well, you know, at the same price over Tally, and you know, every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, it's roughly the same size as a Starfarer. If I chuck
and I take that.
I'll probably chuck one.
And I take a Polaris over a Perseus at a markdown price again. Same reason.
Starfarer is fatter, but they're about the same length. So this is I'm gonna chuck it in here, and people go, "No, it's way bigger." But the point still stands, though, right? Like you can
in terms of length, it's
Like obviously, it's a little bit more chunky, more rotund, but you get the point, right?
Yeah, its butt looks big in that ship. Yeah.
You get the point. Like this is 340, and this is 675, and yes, you can clearly see the combat tax at work there. But they sold that ship because of how hyped it was. Like, I always blame myself for that one.
And John Ski followed up with that question the question saying, "Doesn't the Eclipse fit into the don't buy fighters?" And yes, it does.
Yes, it does. So does the F8. That's why there's so much overlap now. We roughly give you that idea of 250, but there's now so many ships that break that. The Ares is another one, 250. Yet you got an MSR at 260. Why the hell wouldn't you pay $10 and get 4 times as much ship?
But you know, we say, you know, it's not worth the value, and it's not. But it is always still
value to you.
The ships that appeal to you, you go for. And people often don't get. I feel people don't get we're saying that when we do Fix My Fleet. And part of the reason we go for the bigger ships is people say, I want this ship, but I'm just not sure. Basically, it's I want these ships, but I don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
And you say, well, what do you want more, this or this? And it's basically, I want that. Okay, so you melt this and transfer into that, or your CCU into it. And so that's generally the routine. But yeah, it's certainly when you say fix my fleet, you've got 15 to 20 minutes or maybe 30 minutes of what has probably been 5-6 hours of going through and talking and thinking and working out the costs and where you're going and how much is available and all the rest of it. So
on Keljano is first time chatter on Twitch, who just says, is the Perseus a buy or no buy? Sorry, I just joined. Normally you got to put a question in front of your question, but because you're first time chatter, I let it slide. So for us, we're essentially kind of talking about value here, right? So we've been talking about the Eclipse and a few other things, and what can you get it for? So for me and Algared, it wasn't worth 675, but we were both able to get it for about 300, and so for us, then it was worth it.
Yeah,
you right there, bud?
I'll be fine.
All
Just a twinge.
All right.
It happens every so often, and I hate it, but yeah, it's life.
Okay. All right, we'll go on to the next question then. Pantros Sanctus says, the suggestion to purchase the CCU to the Uber Amazing Endeavor is very good and valid, but what is actually included on this ship? Does it have any modules, or is it just the bare bones? Thank you. It is the bare bones, so you
is the bare bones.
You tend to want to have another ship with it, so you'll be able to fill it out, right? But at the end of the day, modules are fairly cheap.
Yeah, and the big positive for the Endeavour is the loaner ships you get with it. So you get a Starfarer and a Cutlass Red.
And what happened to the Banner Mansionman? You reckon the Banner Mansionman going up like it did? It probably won't be quite the same with Endeavour, but it'll be very close. So if you want a repeat of it going from 250 to wherever it's going to end up, that's kind of what's going to happen with the Endeavour.
The change to beds, the change to medical beds, which increases and gives the Cutlass Red so much value now.
Yeah,
that is one of the loaners for the Endeavour.
Yep.
And you get 2 ships as loaners, and they're both in game, and the value of those 2 ships in game, or if you're buying them, is more than the cost of the 350 to get an Endeavour. It is probably the only ship that I think breaks the rule of CCU to it now, and if you want it, and because you've got those 2 ships, and I think the Red's even more value now. So yeah. But the base Endeavour is, as you said, just the base Endeavour. You need to get the modules down the track.
Yep. Lars Barner says, do you think that us whales can use all our big ships by building space stations in the form of clusters of big ships, i.e. by giving people a home, dead space? No. So he's talking like when you and I were talking about flotillas. Essentially, yeah, we've talked about a lot about this, especially setting up like an Endeavour and Kraken surrounded by turrets and mines of Nautiluses. It's going to be a thing.
It's even more. I think he's even going further than that. It's not just having a ship. It's the idea of Spider.
Yep. That was my
Spider is one of the systems. It's the old UEE ship graveyard, and pirates and criminals and ne'er-do-wells and people who don't want to live in the system have kind of squatted there, and they've kind of cobbled the ships together and literally just clumped them together to make this kind of massive ship hulls and frames and corridors that are just this massive. I'm not sure you call it a station, but it basically is. It's basically a city of broken ships. So yeah, I could see that being a thing. It's certainly something in game that we'll be able to go to. So yeah, I can't see why we couldn't do it in game, especially with tractor beams and everything else to help hold it together. And Spider's supposed to change its geometry all the time. So
that's what this is what he's talking about. This is the concept for Spider, and this is really old. This is from like 2013. So yeah.
But it's one of those unique locations that we'll see one day.
Yeah, it's a little weird because it looks more like a planet that's been opened, like a cyber planet. But the way it's described is it's just all these ships that are just essentially tied together.
And station bits.
Yeah, I just don't think that that lines up in my head with what it would look like. Take all the planetary stuff off, like all the curved bits off. Yeah, I can just see it as a whole bunch of ships tied together. But all the curved bits make it look like a planet that's just been cracked open.
Yeah, I could see it if they were, you know, kind of the circular rings from space stations. They had one or two kind of cobbled in, or chunks of them cobbled in. But yeah, you're right. It kind of feels, if I was looking at that first off, I'd think, oh, that's Project Archangel.
Yeah.
Just on looking at it, because it's the idea of making that's the artificial planet. But that is for Spider, not Archangel. But yeah.
Next question.
Archangel, by the way, is Synthwell, which is the thing that our current Imperator supports, which is building a planet, so we don't have to terraform.
Right. Dr. Project says, what are your thoughts on the Cygnus and the possibility of more craft like it? It's designed for Squadron 42. I don't think we'll ever see it as a playable thing. We might see a tip of the hat to it, possibly, which is what me and Algared were saying about the Aristrata, but
yeah, it is certainly something that players have wanted since we first saw graphic art of it in even just white box art. It was just
I've wanted.
You know, players wanted it. I want it now. We wanted our Shelob. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point down the track, many years from now, CIG release it if they think they can sell it. But yeah.
No, I think it's a bad idea. It's a single-player asset, and it's really big. It's confined to space. There is so many gameplay issues involved there. It's just something nice to look at when you fly past all the rocks around Shubin Station. That's what it was for. And and you know, I think for all of those reasons you said, we won't get it. But again, I live in hope. I'm eating some copium steak at the moment. So I made a really nice emoji for you during the week. Did you see it?
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
No.
I made a cope emoji, and it's the copium with a gas mask on. Yeah, it's on the Discord. I made it just for you. You should go have a few of them, because that's what you're doing right now. Right. Benjamin Hanna says, thoughts on the changes to the Firebird and the Retaliator. Well, we talked about that to death. So Benjamin.
I think we have.
Yeah. Long story short, yes. John Ski, Endeavour Master Pack, yay or nay? For me, it's a nay, because you can get essentially 4 Endeavours.
Yep.
Your money goes further without it.
I originally did have one. It was melted very early, and folded into a different pack. Mainly for the same reason. You
can also cover yourself and buy one and put it in a buyback if you really want, in case you think we're wrong. That's fine. Do what you want, but I think the money is so much better spent on that and earn all the modules in game personally, and that's why we do what we do.
I think the problem with the Master Pack is twofold. One, the nice thing at least is now the Master Pack is over 1,000, so if you buy it, you get LTI in your ship automatically.
Yep. Which is why I was saying
the only positive.
Which is why I was saying put into buyback.
Yeah. That's the only positive. The downside of the Master Pack is the fact that all the modules in the Master Pack are enough to put on 3.5 Endeavours.
Yep. And that's why I said you're better off to buy the individual ships.
Yeah.
Like if I look at realistically, would I like the Master set, or would I just buy 2 Endeavours? Right, and that's probably what I'd do, because then I can have like 2 variants, because it does have lots of modules, and I could see myself like having a hospital and like a drug lab, or mix and match type of thing. There's enough variation in there. I could see the use for 2 Endeavours over most ships, where if you look at Retaliator, I can't really see myself wanting more than 2. I could just see the 1, because you've only got to swap a couple of modules around. But there are so many modules for the Endeavour. It's one of the few ships I can justify 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, 100% agree. I don't know if you can hear me. My earpods are dying.
No,
Everything's dying. It's running out of power.
I can hear.
All right.
Right. Vorta Slunder Snoken. I hate that name, sorry. I was going to call him Vorta. We'll just call him Vorta.
Yeah,
Vorta says, with the expected release of Squadron 42 in 2025, a timely release for... No, I'm not going to read it like that. It's going to kill people. A timely release of Star Citizen 1.0 would make sense for a marketing point of view. Do you think that there will be a marketing... there'll be a very reduced scope of gameplay at release, and that they will be missing stuff will only be delivered with a I actually think the vibe that I'm getting, Aaron, and you correct me if I think I'm wrong, they are going for like a early access release. So they're going to get like 5 systems out there, minimum viable product, and just kind of kick it out the door, because then they can say it's been released and people can't get refunds. That's where my brain's
for Squadron
going.
42.
No.
Star Citizen, yeah. 100%. Like,
yeah.
I can remember hearing Chris talk on a 10th of the chairman way back, and he was talking, and I'm pretty certain he said he always intended, something like 5 systems, and that's where you often hear guys like us talk about the line of 5, and that's why the line of 5 idea came. Chris had said it'll be 5 systems to start with, and so we started going, oh, well, what are the 5 systems? We've already got Stanton, so it's going to be 5. It's going to be 4 systems that kind of form a line with Stanton as part of it. Stanton and Pyro, we always knew they were going to be 2 of them. So then it was okay. We know that, I think it's Oberon or whatever system that Squadron 42 is in. We said, okay, that's in that. Yeah, you can actually make a link with that. So that kind of is the 3rd. And it was okay. We've got the link pin that joins those 2 systems, and then the last one is, so the line of 5 ties in with that idea of those 5 systems that Chris kind of hinted at. But I do expect, I'm actually think that they are aiming for the release of Squadron at SitCon. I think that's what they're aiming for, and if it comes out in 25, it's because they missed their target. But I think they're aiming for Squadron.
I think the gala speaks to that very clearly.
Oh, 100%.
We've never had a gala before, and if you're going to have the Citizen Con, right, which is all for all the fans, what do you do the day or night before that when you invite all the press and celebrities and shit like that with the glitz and glamour? You announce it.
And
you announce it right there and there.
Yeah.
And so that'll be the announcement, and we'll be going, oh, gosh, all right. And now it's the next 2 days, right? That's what it is. So it becomes an announcement and the celebration of it in the next 2 days.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I think the aim is to have it launched at SitCon.
And 100%. And CitizenCon just becomes a hype machine, and then it rolls in all month long into AIE and stuff like that. And if you think about it, it gives you an October, November, right into December hype train, right into Christmas, and all those sales just go.
And the other thing that ties in with that is, and I'm sorry if you're talking because I think my headphones just died. Yeah. Unfortunately,
you are too easy to fuck with, my friend. You are way too easy to fuck with.
The AirPods are dead. They just went.
Yeah. Can you still hear me or not?
But I think it too. That they're planning for, and I think you're right. The gala speaks to that. It's the special guests. I think it stars. But the other thing that I recall is when I was talking to Sandy about a visit that Chris and that would do to Australia as for Bar Citizen stuff. She started talking. She mentioned 2025 being a world promotional tour.
Yeah,
and that was I can't remember exactly when now, but that tied in with the fact that we've got the gala and CitizenCon and the special guests and all of that. That just says, that to me just ties in with everything that I think, and I think they're aiming for release of Squadron 42 at SitCon, without a doubt. Whether they make it, that's another thing, but I think they're aiming for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that answered the question. What was the question asking?
Something about the Retaliator, but it's fine.
No, gameplay for Squadron. Yeah, I think it's System of 5.
You missed the joke. It's fine. Pink plays. No, by the way, I was when you were saying there was no sound, that was just me mouthing. That's why everyone's laughing, because I didn't say anything. Pink plays.
You bastard.
Pink plays. Are there physical rewards from the old Kickstarter pledges given to owners if the pledge has been gifted? Oh yeah, why not? Yeah, 100%. I can't see why it would not. But again, I think they said way back when you would have to pay to have them posted to you, and that's what I'm scared about now, because the price of postage has totally changed in favor of the United States and got ridiculously expensive for everyone else. They need to literally go back and add postage options for the world. So, like, when they were posting out of Asia, it was really cheap. Now they build it, ship everything to America and ship it out from America. That's ridiculous. That's just made it... Because essentially, we're paying Algared for it to be shipped to America and then back to us. It's stupid.
Well, I know some of the stuff comes from Manchester.
But again, why don't... Well, again, it's the same thing. It's probably shipped to Manchester or whatever. But they need to send it from Asia, Manchester, and the United States. They need to be sending from 3 locations. Because...
Well, I think...
all 4 corners of the globe type of thing.
I think part of the reason they stopped doing it from Asia was the fact that I'm assuming they were getting complaints about the quality of the packings and other stuff. So
no, I never... I'm going to tell you now, the packings got worse since it started, that got there. I was getting stuff that was all beaten up.
I have to say, from my experience is the reverse. It actually got better. But, you know, hey...
but at the end of the day, they need to send it from all over. What about people that are actually in Asia? Does that mean they've got to pay to get it sent from Asia to Manchester or US and then back again? Like, come on, this is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, so, I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Yeah, either can I. But like again, it's just like we used to pay $10 for postage. Now we buy something, we will pay more for the postage than we will for the product. Like I remember Algared and I both like mouse pads, right? The mouse pads used to cost you about $45 delivered. Now they're like 67, like they're up to almost, I think they're 75 last time I looked. And that costs more for the postage than it does for the mouse pad.
The worst is you used to buy a lot of stuff and it would calculate the shipping, you know, and do that. Now if I buy 2 mouse pads, I pay for shipping twice and it's calculated. It feels like it's calculated, you know, double.
You also can't add them to the same order. So you've got to pay postage on everything. Yeah, but when they ship it to you, they're together. So that's bullshit. Right? It's just they don't send them as individuals either. It's just really dumb. There's a lot of things.
There's some things that are really horrid. Yeah.
Anyway, Topaz says, "What Anvil ships are worth trying out in? Try them all. If you're just trying them, try them all. Yeah, try them all.
You're trying ships out. Try everything. There's free fly for every ship that's in the thing, and I think on the last day you'll be able to rent everything. So yeah, rent everything. Try everything." See what see. And if a particular fighter appeals to you and that's what you want, go for it. Regardless of what we say.
Yeah, so many different ways. Well, here's the time to try them, you know, and see what you like and what you don't like. Look at the different professions, you know. So if you're into exploration, go try out a Carrack. If you're into combat, there's heaps of Aegis and Anvil ships. Find your jam. Answer your own question, literally. Diron Vosk, go ahead.
Diron Vosk says, what would you consider from a ship spec perspective before upgrading from a Caterpillar to the Ironclad? What modules does the Caterpillar have?
That's why I'm in the conundrum I'm in.
And
when I look at the 2 variants of the Ironclad, they just don't offer enough versatility above other ships that I've got. Once you've got a Banner Merchantman, why would I want another cargo ship? And the only thing I can see that I would use is the piracy part of dumping into the top of that thing. And is that worth the $500 to $600 this thing's going to cost? More than likely not, right? So I'm very much in the pass. Someone else will have one type of, because it's not going to have a huge demand. If you look at it, like just theoretical, right? That you're in an org and you're a piracy org and you've got a whole bunch of Drake ships, how many of those are you realistically going to need for an entire org? And you work it out, it's not that many, because it's kind of like the main, like, you know, one ship that you're going to work around, you're only going to need a couple of them. If you're working in, say, a 20-person org, I could probably only see you need 1 or maybe 2.
And realistically, as I'm thinking about it, if you're working in a 20-person org and you're using fighters, the ship that you're most likely going to be using as your home base and your storage base and everything else is your Kraken.
Yep.
For your fighters. And so...
Or even, what about other options? Say you're a smaller org, why wouldn't you take the Liberator? Because then at least you can land your ships on top of it and repair them. And your vehicles. Right?
Yeah.
And you can't do ships on this thing. You can only do the vehicles. So there's just other alternatives. Like, and I know they carry on about how it's got this really safe place. But at the end of the day, once you disable a ship, your days are numbered, right? So if they disable the engines on this thing, and you can't put armor on engines, right?
Yep.
So once you do, yes, it does have a shit ton of engines. It's got like I think it was 6 to 8, right? So yes, it does have a lot, but eventually, once it's in, you know, you're dead in the water. You're dead in the water. Like they're gonna get in eventually. You know, you can't respawn type of thing. But they more than likely have a medical ship and keep on coming.
And if you the biggest advantage I see with the Ironclad is that open hangar type thing at the top, which enables you to swallow a small fighter. It is going to be a nightmare for any small ship.
Yep. Because
they will literally dead in water and swallow you up, and then they've got you at their leisure. You may as well just suicide at that point.
I was talking to
self-destruct your ship.
I was talking to some people last night, and I was just saying, I just see this as like a dump and go ship. They're going to dump the cargo in it. They're going to dump any salvage in it. Anything they want, they just pick it up, and they're like a fart in the wind. They're just gone. So it just allows you to pick everything up and go and deal with it later, right? You don't have to, and this is from a piracy perspective, because obviously they'll pitch it as this is a cargo ship, but everyone knows most Drake ships have an alternative reasoning, and you can see the alternative reasoning in this one. It is a giant catch-all that you just dump all your shit in and get the fuck out of Dodge, right? And deal with it later.
Dump the evidence in and fly away. Yes. Yeah, it's you see one of those coming for you, you may as well self-destruct, and if you don't want to surrender.
Or do you just fill your whole ship full of nukes and let them swallow you?
Yeah, that's right.
Self-destruct. You're asleep and you're like in low power mode, and then you self-destruct inside their ship. That could be funny. That's like the start of like heist. You self-destruct, suicide, and it damages the shit out of the ship, and then your mates come out from behind the rock and.
So would pirates call that griefing?
No, I don't think it's griefing. Griefing by CIG's terminology is repetitively attacking the same person again and again repetitively.
Yep.
That's a one-off attack.
I'm just using the argument against people who get attacked by pirates saying they're griefing me.
I'd probably say that's just desserts at that point if you're attacking pirates. But anyway.
Yeah.
All right, Gentrick Hottie says, Kraken or Idris, which is best for my dollar value? I think it comes back to the question.
Same thing as we said before.
Yeah, it's which one suits you. I personally, for me, the value is because you get support in combat, it goes further, right? But some people are really into combat. So, yeah. And again, you'd also say the Javelin falls into the same thing as Idris. It's just bigger and more combat.
See, I look at the Idris, and I don't look at the Idris as a combat ship. I looked at the Idris, and I always wanted an Idris because, to me, it was the closest ship to a Enterprise. It was a big ship. It had lots of crew. It had lots of NPC. You'd have lots of NPC on it, which was, your red shirts. It had the hangar for your shuttles. It had enough to be able to survive itself. It was big enough to be able to go out in the black for years. For me, it was an exploration ship, even if it didn't have the super U-Butte exploration tools like a Carrack. Does a Kraken do that? Yeah, look, a Kraken do that, but I see them as totally different in terms of role. Make a list. Make a list is what we said before. Make a list, look at the pros and cons of each ship and say, okay, which is the one that ticks all my boxes? Right. And that's the one that's the best value for you.
Nova A42 says, question, speaking of old times, I just watched a video on the Apollo. What happened to Hayes? Life, I think would be the short answer. He just had other things.
And I know people say the same about badges, exactly the same thing.
Yeah. We still talk to Hayes though. I talked to him only a couple of months ago. So yeah. Herolex question, but doesn't an early access release imply no more wipes? Yes it does. Well, no, early access could still be the same thing. It's just like going from alpha to beta, essentially. So, no, it doesn't imply more wipes. It depends what they can do, what they want to do. Yeah.
But I fully expect it. Look, I expect whenever there's a new patch, expect there to be a wipe. If it's not a wipe, fantastic. But expect there to be a wipe.
Yeah.
It's, Hellraiser had a question. Do you think the FA Lightning will ever be available? Eventually.
Maybe. Do they need money? Yeah, maybe. Heralex says question. No, we're already done that one.
No, we've done that one. Next one.
That next one is will for a Nova A42. Was there ever a time where melt value and a ship's MSRP value was always the same? For example, if you could CCU a chain of Carrack for $95 and melt it for $600, no. It's always it's always been what you paid for it. Always.
Yeah. And that's why the CCU chains work, because you're using the current value of a ship as a step forward. But if you melt it, you only get what you paid. It's a weird thing. It's why CCUs, I think, is such a nightmare to try and teach people.
Right, Alex says, have you guys heard from Minion Soldier recently? Haven't seen him post new content in a few months or appear as a guest on your show recently. Yeah, we haven't had him on the show in, oh God, at least a year or two. And yeah, I've heard from a few people he's not doing content. So yeah, hopefully, maybe he's just taking a break. I don't know. I know as much as you guys do. And I'm sure Algared's in the same boat, yeah? Yep. Heralex. You go, Algared.
What needs to be in the game? Basic gameplay loops for early access release.
Scanning.
Bare minimum.
Scanning is the big one.
Scanning, I think, is probably it.
Yeah.
It's a big one. Like, we've got basic repair, we've got basic engineering, or coming. We've got combat, we've got mining, we've got salvage. Scanning really just ties it all together. And jump points, which I think,
Yep.
But yeah.
Volta asks, at the moment we are all big testing ground and PU and PUs for COG. How do you think COG will handle it after the release of Star System when vast majority of players will only be live environment? I think they'll kind of continue to do what they're doing. If you play at heaps, they'll potentially give you access. They could also just go, well, you're an original backer, you get testing access. If you're new tough titties, you only get the live one. I don't know. They can do whatever they want. That's up to them. And I don't think it really matters as long as the game gets tested and the bugs get all ironed out. I think all of us will be mature enough to go, that's what matters. So yeah, I don't know how else to answer that, Algared. Like, they're going to do what they need to do, yeah?
Yeah, I think they'll just keep doing what they're doing. Like, they'll still need testers for patches of new things that they're bringing out or putting in going forward. Hopefully down the track it won't be as an arduous thing. There'll be less bugs or issues that are causing trouble. But you know from programming, you put one thing in and something that was a bit dodgy early on breaks and you got to find it. I can remember there was one bug, the mysterious ship suddenly exploding bug.
Yeah.
And it was just caused because as the ships were moving, your armor was bumping the side of a ship and doing 1 point of damage, 1 point of damage, 1 point of damage.
Yeah.
But it took them ages to find that.
Yeah.
Because it was just it was an incidental little thing, but So yeah.
Here Alex says go ahead.
No, I was just saying they'll do what they need to do.
Here Alex says, are you all planning on a buyer's guide for the Drake Ironclad? So let's clear this up, because this is something that we've never really explained. Buyer's guides come when a ship releases, and then we generally do impressions when a ship is in concept. When it's announced or in concept. So when it releases and goes into the game, it's a buyer's guide.
When it's in concept, when it first comes out, its concept art, we'll do our first thoughts and we'll say, hey, is it worth backing at this point in time? But the actual buyer's guides tend to be when the ship is flyable. Yeah, because it's
you know more what you're getting then. So it's easier to do a guide when you know what you're getting. Up until that point, it's a fair bit of speculation and blah, blah, blah. But when it's tangible and kind of able to be in your hand, so to speak, it's a lot easier to do a guide.
But will we do something when it's released as a concept art? Yeah, because we always do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we'll do a buyer's guide later on.
Yeah. Khaleesi47 says, can a Retaliator Bomber CCU be applied to the Retaliator now that it is in the store? Is my Retaliator base to Eclipse worthless now? I have no Retaliator in hangars or buyback. Wait, Retaliator base to Eclipse. Why wouldn't that CCU work? That would work, wouldn't it? Retaliator base. It's $150 to $300.
You can still buy a Retaliator base, yeah.
Yeah. You just buy a Retaliator base and then upgrade it from Retaliator base to an Eclipse.
Yep.
Or is that they're not working or something? I don't know. Is there something that
I'd have to check that myself.
Maybe maybe there's a disconnect that I'm not understanding. But yeah, why wouldn't it work?
Yeah, I think it depends on whether a retaliator bomber CCU is different from a retaliator base CCU. So if you've got a retaliator bomber, you would need a retaliator bomber to eclipse CCU, not a retaliator base to eclipse CCU. But I'm assuming at the moment that both are still in the store, and if they're not, which one is in the store, and that's kind of your answer. But my understanding is the base is still available, and unfortunately, being in the situation I am, I can't really check as readily as I'd like.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Chris says the Tali, the Tali now have their turrets upgraded to S3. Yeah. Okay, so you've read that one already, so that's fine. Fred Eric Salt says, could one of you give Paul or the Astropub some lessons with those YouTube tools? Says again, he should be online half an hour ago. Also, he's a busy boy.
He is a busy boy. He's a teacher. He's always busy.
He's a teacher. Then feel free to give him shit when he turns up. That's what I do to Algared every time he turns up late. You got to punish him, or they just keep up the bad behavior in the classroom. You got to discipline these kids. Sick of this shit. No, it's fine. This is why I can't be a teacher, because I'd be yelling like crazy mofo. My mum was a teacher, but you can tell I wouldn't be able to do it. Not in a heartbeat.
So I think Paul drags us kicking and screaming into Twitch. We do actually share quite a lot of the stuff we do between each other. He's probably the closest. I think he and Space are probably the two other content creators we're probably closest to as a team.
But there's always messages going between us all in the
private chat. The group of us are always sharing content, sharing ideas and content and tools and ideas and stuff. So
I reckon I talk to those guys at minimum on a weekly basis. At minimum.
During breaks, I'll probably do it more, but
yeah. True. Even around Invictus, there's more chat going on too. Phantom says, "What do you think the average savings percentage on the CCU?" Oh God. As long as a piece of string, that's as a lot of people don't get CCU chains, so your average would be out the arse, because most people don't even bother.
Most people do a CCU. They go, I've got my LTI token. I'll buy one CCU, bang, done. And that's their CCU chain. Whereas a real good CCU chain is like every jump is a $5 or $10 incremental, with saving, maybe $1.
Yeah.
It's hard to gauge.
Yeah. Always Searching says, how do we convince CIG to let the containers stake higher than the doors on the Fat Caterpillar if we don't mind them being wait, hang on. How do we convince
He wants them to stack higher. So he wants to basically be able to stack them above leave the doors open and stack the crate.
Just stack them anyway. Just stack them yourself.
Yeah, but he wants them to stack outside the frame.
But as soon as it's not going to happen, because as soon as you go outside the frame, you're outside the not the cargo grid, but you're outside the gravity of the ship. But you're technically outside the ship. So once you're outside the ship, they would have to build the thing to be bigger than that, and that's not going to happen because again, you got that transition. Oh, what the hell am I talking about?
Yep.
You know the one. What am I talking about? I'm brain fart on the tech name.
Basically,
essentially the portal tech. What's it called? The transition tech. Oh, what the.
Yeah, I can't remember, but basically, as I understand it, the second you take the cargo and stack it above the ship, you're changing the ship model.
Yeah.
And so you'd need a brand new ship model, and they're not going to do it. That's probably a very simplistic approach, but yeah, they want something that they can keep the outside looking the same.
What the fuck? So Monster Ape is saying that the bases are separate, so old CCUs and base ships don't work. The new CCUs are Retaliator, and all the bomber CCUs only work on. Well, that's just stupid. They need to fix that. That's really dumb. That's incredibly dumb.
Yeah.
They need to fix that. So someone's like stuffed up a spelling mistake or some shit, and because of that, they don't work. Yeah.
I'd contact customers.
Mass customer server reporting to fix that shit is what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
Because that means a lot of mine don't work either, and I didn't even notice. But yeah, that's stupid.
I'd be certainly putting in a customer service request and saying, "Hey, my CCUs are no longer working because you've changed this."
I would argue that they're probably going to fix that at a later date.
I would expect they will fix that once it gets drawn to their attention. They probably haven't noticed. I know people assume that CIG do things nefariously, but I am 100% positive they don't. It's just people make mistakes and errors and miss things, and you can double, triple, quadruple check things, and you'll still have errors in it. So, and I think that's just probably one of those things. So.
Hellraiser, question: do you think the F7A Lightning? No, we've done that already. Generic Holtz question: Kraken. We've done that already. Geez, how many of these are repeats? But does early access release imply no more wipes? We've done that one.
I think we've done that one already.
Repeats. Why are these coming in?
Guys, remember, your questions come into our bot.
It might have been Algared. I also restarted the bot, so it might have been me.
Okay.
Oh, you're playing it. No, done that, and you think the Drake? Yeah, we've done all of them. All the questions are done. Cool, we're done, Algared. Well, how long have we got left? 20 minutes. I can have breakfast early. Woo! Right.
Right. The bot,
I'll find someone to raid.
The bot did all the questions again. Okay, cool.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, because I thought we were gonna have enough, but they're all real quick ones. So I'll find someone to raid while you.
Well, all those questions that were in our line, we're very quick to answer because we'd answered them.
Yeah.
So I was a bit concerned that people who knew the system were asking questions. I said, why are you doing that? You know that the bot takes them and puts them in a list.
Yeah. All right. Is anyone that is online that we know? Let's have a look here. Let's have a look. No, none of these names. Oh, yeah, there's one there. There's one there, I know. I think we'll go with that one. Hang on. Go a little lower, go a little lower. No one there, I know. That's a shame. Astropub's not online yet, is he? They said, oh, yeah.
Monster Avery does say in chat, he says he doesn't know about that. He said, mine worked on a retaliator, and in Discord, 3 people have said they couldn't apply it on the base. So...
yeah, so hopefully they're trying to fix it.
Yeah.
It'll get there. They don't do things maliciously. You would agree with me. They turn around and if something is broken, they fix it. It just takes time because Invictus and the sales are just they're crunch because they're trying to do as much as they can at the same time.
Jag Hiroshi says, will CIG retire the Crucible before it gets out of JPEG? Yeah. No, because it's the fundamental repair ship in the game.
Yep. Open this.
You troublemaker, you.
Then pause it very quickly before we get sound.
Stan also said the bomber CCUs are working, but the base ones don't seem to be, from what I can gather.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to raid Subliminal. We haven't raided Subliminal in a very long time. I haven't actually seen him streaming when we've been streaming for ages. So, yeah, say hello to Subliminal. Hope he's well. And with that, then Twitch said goodbye to YouTube. YouTube can say goodbye to Twitch.
Bye, Twitch.
And we'll see you guys next week. Twitch. Bye. And they're gone. Right, now we'll talk about them behind their back. No, just kidding.
As we do every week.
Don't forget to subscribe, ring that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and thank you to everyone that went that extra mail on Patreon at the end of the video. Is there anything you want to hear from people in the comments, Algared? Especially about how I am so good at trolling you, and give me some other tips on how to troll Algared. I'd love to know. Right, Algared, what would you like to hear? You would like to hear how I can stop Execute from trolling me. That's what you would like to hear.
How can I stop Execute trolling me? How can I troll him back?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Get good, scrub. That's how. Right. With that, then, he's been Algared.
He's been Executed.
And I'll keep. See you, citizens.
You will. That's usually my line, isn't it?
You'll keep. That's why I stole it. See, I'm very good. I'm up with the kids. I'm hip. Not. Right. We're out of here.